What's up, San Diego?
This is San Diego sports. The wins, the losses, the moments that matter, and the opinions that come with them.
Padres have clinched the playoffs in back-to-back seasons for the first time since 05 and 06.
No hype, no filter. Just the truth about your teams, your city, and the people who care about it most.
The reality is the expectations are higher now for this club than they were in 2019 and 2020 when the Padres hadn't made the playoffs that many times.
He's been here. He knows this city. And now he's leading the conversation every single day. Live and local on 97.3 The Fan.
This is fun. We're doing this for fun. This is fun. Have fun. Enjoy the fun with us having fun.
Now, here's Braden Surprenant.
What's up, San Diego? And a happy Friday. It's Friday on the Braden Surprenant Show. San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. He's Frank Marchese. I'm Braden Surprenant. We're here each and every day from 10 to 2 on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Big day today after coming off of a huge win last night for the San Diego Padres. We got a lot to dive into today. We have some college football news that might lead to some crazy conference realignment very shortly, maybe within 180 days. We'll just let you know about that later on the noon hour. It's going to be kind of our football hour, if you will. We'll have NFL training camp updates for you in the noon hour as well. We had a football game last night. It was good to have football back on television, and it was actually a pretty good game, surprisingly enough. We'll talk about that later on. We'll talk about San Diego FC and their loss to Club America yesterday night. Drake Hills will join us at 1:35. We got lots to get to, plus some interesting nuggets about the trade deadline and what happened. Now as the dust has settled and you're starting to get the stories about what was on the table potentially, what the Tigers were looking for in the Tarek Skubal conversation with the Brewers and Rays were willing and not willing to give up. That was some interesting thoughts from Ken Rosenthal and Jeff Passan this morning that we're going to dive into later on in this hour. But, last night was not necessarily a must-win, but it was very close to a must-not-lose game, as Kevin Acee appointed it today in his daily newsletter, and I totally agree. The Padres with a loss last night would have been 3 games out of a wild card spot, which is a lot tougher than just being 1 game out of a wild card spot. There were so many different reasons why last night was very important. Number one, it was, of course, being in the standings that they are. Not being 3 games back is kind of huge. I mean, when you're going into 46 games left in the season, you don't really want to be 3 games back from a playoff spot. Again, the easiest way to look at it, and maybe it's not because I've been told now that my line of thinking makes things a little bit more confusing, but this is how I figure this out. In terms of being games back, the odds of you winning 3 straight games and another team losing 3 straight games in a row at the same time is very slim. You have to view it basically on the we're going to gain ground over winning series while teams in front of us lose series. And if you think about it from that perspective, being 3 games out means you have to win 3 series and they have to lose 3 series. And then you're tied. So if the Padres lost last night, they would have had to win 3 more series than the Diamondbacks did, over the course of the next 46 games to be tied in the standings. But that would have done the Padres any good, because reason number 2 of why yesterday was so important was you need to try to have the tiebreaker over Arizona. And a loss last night meant that if you would have lost last night against the Arizona Diamondbacks, in order to win the season series against Arizona, and if these 2 teams continue to be back and forth the entire year, which looks like they're going to, then you would have had to sweep them over the final weekend of the season, or the final last 3 days of the season. That would have been a daunting task. But now, with the win, and this is very important, with the win, the Padres are now a game out of a wild card spot, which is good. It would have been better if they took 3 out of 4, right? But it's good. Padres are just a game out of a wild card spot. And now they are tied with Arizona in terms of the overall season series. They have split every single series against Arizona this season. which means the final 3 games at Petco Park, you win 2 out of 3, you win the season series. That could be win 2 out of 3, you're in the playoffs. Now, I agree with Fernando Tatis Jr. yesterday in the postgame. Hopefully we're 8 games above that, above the Arizona Diamondbacks by the time we get to that spot, so we don't have to worry about that last weekend. But I think your best chance of having a home playoff series might be just playing those 3 games against Arizona. Now, with the win, you still keep your pace over Miami. In fact, you gained a game on Miami because they've lost 3 in a row. So you're 2 games in front of Miami. You're 2.5 in front of St. Louis. You're 3 in front of Cincinnati. 3.5 in front of Pittsburgh. And you're 4.5 games in front of Washington, who are pretty much out of it now at 5.5 games under 5.5 games behind a wild card spot. So right now, you're in the thick of things, and you're keeping the teams behind you. We'll see how this plays out for Miami, but the fact that they, didn't really add at the trade deadline, I think is going to hurt them. I don't think St. Louis is going to be able to keep pace at all, but you got a 2-game lead on the Marlins. You're looking at the Diamondbacks in front of you. You can't have a bad stretch on this next homestand against Houston and Milwaukee, and think that you're going to hold off Miami. You got to start separating yourselves from the rest of the pack. So last night, I thought that was a gutsy performance by Walker Buehler. I thought he did a pretty good job. He only gave up the 1 run. I thought that 1 run he gave up was just what an unfortunate inning for the Padres in the 3rd inning. This was like my main takeaway from that inning. The 1 inning that gave up a run. I mean, he goes, gets the first 2 guys out, and then he saws off Corbin Carroll. I mean, saws him off. And Corbin Carroll just gets the ball inside the third base bag. Inside third base down the line in a shift, so nobody's there, and it turns into a double, and the next guy drops in a single to right center field to give the Diamondbacks their 1 and only run. They threatened a little bit more in that inning. They had a couple of hits in a row with 2 outs, but Walker Buehler was able to get out of it, and that was the only run that the Arizona Diamondbacks scored the entire game. I thought the bullpen was great. I mean, the bullpen continues to carry this team as they did last night. 4 relievers covered 5 innings last night, the final 5 innings. They allowed just 2 singles. Mason Miller, Adrian Morejon, Jeremiah Estrada, Bradley Rodriguez were all fresh because of the workload management earlier this series. Mason Miller leads the National League now with 28 saves and 29 opportunities. Adrian Morejon, one of MLB's busiest high-leverage relievers, frequently faces the opponent's toughest hitters before Miller enters. That has been the case all season long. He did it again last night, and both Miller and Morejon emphasized the bullpen's depth rather than their own success. And I think that showed last night for the Padres. It also shows about the 22-year-old rookie right-hander coming out of the bullpen, and Bradley Rodriguez, who is becoming a major weapon for this team. He retired the top 6 Arizona hitters over 2 scoreless innings. And Craig Stammen, after the game, now considers him one of the guys that you can rely on in the back end of the bullpen, which I think is great news for the San Diego Padres, because he has evolved from kind of low leverage at the beginning of the season just because he was a rookie, and to now a trusted late game arm. I trust him in late in games. Do you trust him, Frank, late in games? I mean, I like Bradley. I think at this point, if you're not going to go with Miller or Morejon until you get Jason Adam back, I kind of trust Bradley Rodriguez almost more than I trust Jeremiah Estrada.
I mean, he looks good. He's definitely looked good this year. He's got a 2.29 ERA. Just picked up his 3rd win of the season. I mean, I wouldn't be all that upset seeing him later in games, 7th, 8th inning.
He's got a 1+ WAR. He's got elite fielding, independent pitching among qualified relievers. And Jay Cronenworth called Rodriguez's outing probably the 2 most important innings of the game, in what arguably is one of the most important games of the year for the Padres. Walker Buehler's short start definitely raises some questions, but you know what? He only allowed 1 run at all, and I think Craig Stammen managed yesterday like a playoff game, and I think he needed to. 4 innings out of Walker Buehler, only 76 pitches. He gave up the 1 run. Craig Stammen went to the bullpen, I think, because this felt like a playoff-type game. You needed to win this game. Arizona's top of the lineup was due up. Padres had a full-rested bullpen, modern bullpen strategy in this game. I think you can deploy that a lot during the season in random spots. It's not sustainable over a course of like 2 weeks, but I think last night was a great opportunity for Craig Stammen to manage it like a playoff game. That's exactly what he did, and I'm glad he did because it led to a win. I think they managed that bullpen perfectly last night, Frank, and I think that was the case regardless if they gave up any runs because, hindsight, obviously it worked, so it seems like a great idea, but I was thinking that when the game started. Like, any sort of trouble with Walker Buehler, you got to get to the bullpen, especially if you had a lead, because you needed to win that game.
Yeah, and Walker Buehler pretty much had more or less an identical pitch total, pitch count, strike count to Casey Mize, 76 pitches instead of 77, and both of them threw 47 strikes, sorry. But yeah, to go Rodriguez early, get him for 2 innings, then Jeremiah Estrada, Morejon striking out 3, Miller striking out 2 in that 9th inning. That is exactly what you would expect if the Padres got into a situation where they're running in a playoff series. That's more or less what you'd expect. Get the starter out early, first sign of trouble, and then go to your big names, get an inning out of each, and then run for tomorrow.
Luis Rengifo becoming a unexpected difference maker. I mean, he went 3 for 5 last night with 2 bunt singles.
Yep.
He was bunting to advance runners, and then he busted his ass down the first baseline and, forced the issue. See, there's a difference. Like a guy like Luis Rengifo, who's already been DFA'd this year, he can't afford to jog it down to first. Okay, not like the guys that are on this team and under contract for a long time. But Luis Rengifo, 3 for 5 yesterday, 2 bunt singles, constantly putting pressure on defense. And since joining the Padres, he's got a 344 average, a 440 on base, and a 469 slug. And after being released from Milwaukee, he's become one of San Diego's best offensive sparks. And Fernando Tatis Jr. praised that energy he brings every single night. And the reality is, too, with this, Rengifo got off to a bad start in Milwaukee. He has had a pretty decent career so far in the major leagues. He has had, some pretty good numbers with Anaheim. He signs with Milwaukee, and he got off to a 205 average and a 534 OPS. For a team like Milwaukee, who has like young prospects coming up and knocking on the door, they're not going to be extra patient with him. And so they gave up on Rengifo very quickly. And the Padres picked him up, and he started to really regress back to the mean of what the player he has been his entire career. I mean, his season stats now are 241 average with a 632 OPS. That's not necessarily anything to write home about, but that's just because he had such a rough time in Milwaukee in his first 209 plate appearances there. I mean, with San Diego, he's got a 0.7 WAR. With Milwaukee, it was a negative 0.4 WAR. I'm curious to see what Rengifo does against his former team that gave up on him earlier in the season. We'll see them next week. But Luis Rengifo, where would the Padres be right now without Luis Rengifo, especially going back to like the winning streak that they were on and the 3-game series they had in Miami?
Yeah, Rengifo is starting to really show what he did that made him a mainstay up in Anaheim. He's got speed. He's got a decent enough amount of speed. He really started stealing bases in 2024. His previous career high was 6, and then he shot up to 24. So he's been able to use that speed here, especially as of late. He's always been a solid defender, a guy who's either going to be batting 2 or 8 or 9 in the lineup. He has been very, very good and showing why he was an everyday player up in Anaheim.
And when he was in Anaheim, from when his age 25 to 28 season. His age 28 season, he's coming off not that great of a year, but it's a little bit of a stretch between there and Milwaukee where he hasn't been very good. But he hit 264 with a 724 OPS in 2022. He hit 264 with a 783 OPS in 2023. He hit 300 with a 763 OPS in 2024.
In 78 games, so he did miss some time that year.
He had a 1.8 WAR that season. And then, last year he came down a little bit, but he has consistently been a pretty decent hitter in Major League Baseball over the course of a handful of years. He hit 250 with a 688 OPS in his career in Anaheim, which, again, the OPS numbers are not necessarily there, but these are solid numbers for a player like Luis Rengifo that can help out a big league club like the Padres, who have spent a lot of their money in some stars, and you need some pieces on the side. This is a complimentary piece.
Yeah, the production that you're getting, not necessarily home runs, not necessarily the stolen bases, but this is more or less what you were hoping for out of Nick Castellanos when you signed him this offseason. You're getting that now just in a different way than you were expecting to get it from Castellanos. You're getting now from Luis Rengifo.
The unfortunate thing is, Gavin Sheets is battling right now. I mean, he is quietly playing through, obviously, plantar fasciitis, which is terrible. I'm pretty sure, this is a very debilitating injury. And if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure that this is something that Antonio Gates had, if I'm not mistaken. And when he got that injury against Tennessee in the playoff game, where he got that tear and he got the, plantar fasciitis.
Yeah,
his production went way down. I mean, it's a debilitating injury, and I've talked. I mean, I have turf toe, which is not like anything close to what this injury is, and it's not fun. And I've talked to, and our receivers coach at Cathedral is Quinn Early, who played a long time in the NFL. He said, something plantar fasciitis and turf toe is some of the most debilitating injury that you can try to play any athletic sport with. So the fact that he's trying to do that right now and he's hitting 103 over his last 23 games, it's not surprising to me that Gavin Sheets has struggled because, he's still hitting the ball hard. I mean, he hit a 408-foot flyout that was caught at the wall, 103-yard ground ball that was robbed down the line. He hasn't gotten a lot of luck either, but that injury is nothing to not, that you have to pay attention to that injury. That's something that's very difficult to deal with. And, Sheets insists he still expects to help the club during a stretch run, but, that is something that is very debilitating.
And looking at the timeline for that injury, if he has surgery to fix it, that's 3 to 4 months that he's out. So he's
just going to try to grind through the next 46 games.
Grind through the rest of the season.
Playoffs.
Have the surgery probably the day after the season ends, and then hope to be ready for next season, because this is not going to be, if he does go on the IL for it, it's not going to be like a couple week IL stint. It's not going to be the 10 days and he's back. If he does elect to have surgery on it, it's going to be a 4-month process for him.
I thought the Padres got incredibly unlucky last night as well, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Catcher position has been suddenly producing for the San Diego Padres. We'll also talk about that. Plus, we got some updates for you on Joe Musgrove and Nick Pivetta. We are just getting started here on the Braden Surprenant Show, San Diego's number one sports station, 97.3 The Fan. NFL training camps officially underway across all 32 teams, and every team has major questions to answer before week one. The biggest story, quarterback battles. Cleveland is deciding between Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders. Minnesota choosing between Kyler Murray and J.J. McCarthy. Atlanta has Michael Penix Jr. battling Tua Tagovailoa, and Las Vegas must decide whether or not they're going to start rookie Fernando Mendoza or go with the veteran in Kirk Cousins. Around the league, several stars are entering make-or-break seasons, including C.J. Stroud, Baker Mayfield, Keon Coleman, Puka Nacua, and Nick Bosa. Super Bowl contenders are also in the spotlight. Seattle beginning its title defense, while the Rams look loaded after adding Myles Garrett and Trent McDuffie. Add in 10 new head coaches, major roster battles and preseason games just around the corner. It'll be on Thursday, to be exact, the Hall of Fame game. And the road to the 2026 NFL season officially underway. Let's go around the league. Let's start talking about quarterbacks, where there are 5 legit quarterback battles entering August with the Falcons, Vikings, Browns, Raiders, and Cardinals.
Yeah, and Michael, we talked about a lot of these last week. Michael Penix Jr. Versus Tua Tagovailoa, very real. Are expected to battle once both return to full health. Penix is recovering from an ACL injury, while Tua dealing with back issues. For the Vikings, Kyler Murray versus J.J. McCarthy. They have been splitting first-team reps so far during training camp, with a decision to be made before joint practices begin later on this month. Cleveland is going to be Deshaun Watson versus Shedeur Sanders. They are alternating reps as well. Vegas, Kirk Cousins versus Fernando Mendoza. Why would you start Mendoza? I have no idea.
Because you're the Raiders.
Arizona, has Jacoby Brissett versus Gardner Minshew versus Carson Beck. Why is Gardner Minshew being considered?
That's shots fired at Gardner Minshew.
I'm just saying, you just restructured Jacoby Brissett's deal. You drafted Carson Beck. I understand that Gardner Minshew's had a couple of flashes in the NFL, but let's be honest here. This is between Brissett and Beck, please.
I think so, too. And Beck's looked pretty good so far, but I just, with Arizona, I still think they're not going to be very good. I still can't believe you can go into a season thinking Jacoby Brissett's going to be your leader of the team in terms of this on-field production. I think Tua is going to outdo Michael Penix Jr. The Kyler Murray, J.J. McCarthy thing is very interesting. Even if you go with Kyler Murray, is he going to make it through the whole season? Has he been able to make it through the whole season? He makes a lot of mistakes too. And how about J.J. McCarthy already? I mean, I know he hurt himself for the first year that got watched. He didn't look very good last year, and I just don't know, if he's got what it takes to be that everyday guy in Minnesota. I mean, this is make or break for them. Cleveland, Deshaun Watson, Shedeur Sanders. That's kind of a rock and a hard place for the Browns. I look at this, and even though we have legit quarterback battles, Frank, a lot of these options aren't very good, across the board. It's not like you have two really good quarterbacks battling out for a spot. I mean, you got two very average at best quarterbacks for everyone. The only one that's not is the Raiders' dilemma, but you don't want to get your rookie guy killed.
No, absolutely not. That makes absolutely no sense.
There are several quarterbacks that are also entering make-or-break seasons. C.J. Stroud, Daniel Jones, Geno Smith, Jaden Daniels. How about Baker Mayfield being disrespected? He didn't get a contract extension. Come on, man. I mean, you've been on so many different teams. You're not at that level. And he's played some pretty good quarterback in the NFL. He's been he has lasted a lot longer in the NFL than I thought he was going to.
Same.
But every time you think he makes a step in the right direction, he takes another step backwards in terms of being likable, if you will. There's a lot of players that have everything on the line in this training camp. We talked about Michael Penix Jr. already, Shedeur Sanders, obviously, but a couple of players that are not quarterbacks. Keon Coleman, he admitted himself this is a make or break year for him in Buffalo. Rome Odunze, after a struggling year last year with the Bears, where they have a lot of other weapons that they could go to. I mean, he's looking to bounce back after injuries and inconsistency, trying to improve his production. Rashee Rice, he needs both production and improved off-field decisions entering free agency. And then you got a couple other players that are near the elite level, like Puka Nacua. Can he match his elite ability with his, can he match his maturity with his elite ability? Nick Bosa is returning from an injury for the Niners. They have a lot of guys that are make or break with some injury news. And then Baker Mayfield, playing for what could become one of the NFL's biggest quarterback contracts, but a guy that I don't necessarily know if he's going to get said quarterback contract.
Yeah, there's a lot of position battles as well across the league. A lot of teams that have big issues that they're trying to figure out. For the Browns, Vikings, and Falcons, again, quarterback. Bills, left guard, protecting Josh Allen. That is one of their biggest.
We do want to continue with some of our conversation about yesterday's playoff game, felt like a playoff game. Yesterday's Padres game, and then we got some updates for you on the organization when it comes to what's going on with Joe Musgrove and Nick Pivetta. We're going to get to that in a second. Adam, we do have the audio of Craig Stammen talking about Nick Pivetta. We're going to get to that in just a little bit.
Also got Eric Grubner on the management report.
We're going to do that later.
This morning as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got that later.
We will do that later. All right. I thought I literally, before the game ended, this is what I texted. Sometimes I text in my friend's group chat and I'm just talking to myself. Last night, that was kind of the case. I mean, a lot of my friends have moved on to football at this point until the Padres heat back up, so take that for what it's worth. But I texted after the third inning and said, that was the most unlucky third inning I've ever seen in my life, or the luckiest ever. I have come to the point, this is going to sound crazy, Frank. You ready for this? This is going to sound crazy. This is crazy. And maybe it's just a recency bias. I almost dislike the Diamondbacks more than the Dodgers now. They drive me nuts.
Oh,
Is that crazy?
how does that make you feel?
How do you feel about that? No, seriously. Like, it drives me nuts. I don't think the Arizona Diamondbacks are that good. I really don't. I really don't think they're that good. I think they're annoying to deal with. I hate the fact that, like, nobody goes to their games. Even when they were in the World Series, Frank. Do you remember when they were in the World Series?
Mm-hmm.
There was nobody at their games. I've come to the realization the Dodgers are what they are, okay? Like, they spend a lot of money. They got all these players. Like, it is what it is. You know, there's a lot of players on the Dodgers that are not, like, that hateable anymore. Talking from a fan perspective, obviously as a professional that I am, I don't hate anybody. But, from a fan standpoint, there's a handful of players on the Dodgers that I don't like. But, like, I can't hate Freddie Freeman. I really can't hate Mookie Betts. I don't really have a problem with him. I've never really had a problem with Clayton Kershaw, right? I mean, Dave Roberts drives me nuts, okay? I don't like the arrogance from the Dodgers, but you know what? They got their deals, okay? You know, they do what they do. The Diamondbacks drive me nuts. I don't think they're very good. I think their broadcast team always finds a way to say something like incredibly infuriating about the Padres. Although we haven't heard Bob Brenly say anything kind of crazy like that in a long time. I don't like the Diamondbacks. And so, like, the most luckiest inning I've ever seen in my life in the third inning yesterday kind of led to this realization. I just really don't like the Rattlebacks. And I can see why someone I used to work with used to call them the Rattlebacks. And he used to tell me he didn't like the Diamondbacks. And he actually disliked the Diamondbacks way more than he disliked the Dodgers. And you know what, Frank? I'm starting to understand why.
That's why I always call them the danger noodles.
Foul. You're going to start foul out Friday early. The danger noodles?
Yeah.
He draws the foul.
Give me a break.
Poisonous snakes. Danger noodle. Nope rope.
Thing ain't a noodle. Rattleback. Hate the Diamondbacks. Strongly dislike the Diamondbacks.
I hate snakes to begin with.
That whole inning was so ridiculous that, like, Corbin Carroll gets sawed off just right down the line. How many times have the Padres gotten hosed by doing any type of shift? It just seems like it doesn't work. I also thought that inning was unlucky because of a lot of other things, but then you go back, and Kevin Acee put this in his daily newsletter, the Padres were actually better than what the final score said. StatCast showed just how unlucky San Diego was offensively. Xander Bogaerts hit a ball last night with a 96% hit probability that became an out. Only Xander Bogaerts could do something like that on this team. I swear. I feel like that's the definition of Xander Bogaerts' career in a Padres uniform. Hazard spaghetti. Can you not? See, this is the problem with you coming up with weird terms, is our guy Augie in the YouTube chat is just going to go on a roll with a bunch of just different names about what do you call a snake. The nope ropes, hazard spaghetti, judgmental shoelace. Ridiculous. That's a foul on Augie. Did I ever say?
He draws the foul.
Did I ever say they were not funny? No, they're still funny. I am dying on the inside right now, trying to keep my professionalism over the air. But that's still a slippery tube, dude. Foul. Hit him again.
He draws the foul.
I might have to tee this guy up in a second. Okay, so Bogaerts had a 96 hit probability that was an out. Sheets hit one with an 85% hit probability that became an out. Merrill had a 403-foot drive robbed. Despite robbed hits, Padres kept adding insurance runs, getting frustrated. And Craig Stammen praised the quality of the at-bats throughout the game. I thought that was the case, too. I really think the Padres had a nice day yesterday. I also agree with transcript in the YouTube chat. I hate Chase Field, too. The Bob Banquin Ballpark, the old Bob, that thing looks like playing in an Amazon hangar. That's what that place looks like.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as like the Trop or like Texas. Texas is like that too. You're just playing like a giant warehouse. It's stupid. Have you noticed the catchers have started to rake?
Yes. Freddie Fermin had a RBI hit last night. Campusano's starting to find some gaps. So it's been very nice to see the the second half of the battery working.
Give him one more.
He draws the foul.
I'll get in the YouTube chat. The hissy sticks. I'm done. All right. Catching position. Since Luis Camposano has returned from his injury, he's hitting .308. Since July 17th, Freddie Fermin is hitting .333. Combined catcher production, .344 average, .862 OPS during the recent stretch. I mean, that's pretty good. I mean, earlier in the year, the Padres catchers right near the bottom of baseball offensively. A lot of that was because Luis Camposano was on the IL. But this is an unexpected strength for the Pods at probably the best time possible, right? Probably the best time possible. I mean, it just seemed like Freddie Fermin was like putting together a nice little run, but it just, his average is just was so low. It just seemed like maybe it was his fool's gold to think about it. But since July 17th, I mean, that's a decent amount of time right now that Freddie Fermin's been on a little bit of a run, and you're seeing it at the best time.
It's also when he got healthy again, because he's been getting nicked up and hit a lot back there. Hasn't been getting hit as much. Got healthy, spent another couple stints on the IL, and now he's getting back to normal. He's getting back to the Freddie Fermin that we saw at the end of last season that really helped the Padres out offensively down the stretch.
Did you know the Padres have won every game of the last 5 games that Freddie Fermin has played in?
I did not know that. It's unfortunate he's a catcher.
They're 5-0 in their last 5 games that he has played. During that stretch, he has gotten a hit in every single game. He was 1 for 3 against Colorado, a 3-1 win. He was 1 for 4 against San Francisco in a 7-0 win. He was 2 for 3 with a run scored and a home run against San Francisco with 3 RBIs and a 6-5 win. And the 2 games he played against Arizona this week, the Padres won. He went 2 for 5 with a double and an RBI, and last night 1 for 4 with an RBI. He's been on a little bit of a tear right now, which is great for the Padres at the right time. And, again, you look at these, the hitting logs for him. I mean, Freddie Fermin's he is as crazy as this sounds, he has since, what do we say, July 17th been hit well? I mean, since June 2nd, when his batting average was $130, he has raised his average to a 187 batting average. Again, nothing to really write home about. But his last 5 games, he's gotten a hit, and he's gotten a hit in 6 out of his last 7 games, dating back to July 25th against the Marlins.
And he also had that streak of games where he had home runs in like 4 or 5 games. So he's been able to turn it on. And yeah, it may not be, that average may not look like a lot, but when you realize he's raised that thing 53 points in a matter of 2 months, that's a guy who's on a good tear. And I just saw it in the YouTube chat as well. Jake Cronenworth, ever since coming off the injured list with his concussion and his concussion issues, he has really contributed offensively to this team. He has been a very, very nice addition to the middle of the infield for the Padres this year.
Fermin is hitting .368 with a .947 OPS in his last 5 games. I know it's a small sample, but they're getting that at the right time. And to go back to Jake Cronenworth again, I agree. I mean, his numbers again at the beginning of the season are just going to weigh down his overall year. But as you mentioned, since coming off of the injured list, since coming back from missing a significant amount of time, Jake Cronenworth has been more than serviceable for this Padres team. Way more than serviceable for this Padres team. I mean, he came back with a 140 average and a 455 OPS. He's gotten that up to a 218 with a 599 OPS offensively. He's hitting a lot better than he was at the beginning part of the year. And since July 1st, he played the last 2 days in June, but since July 1st, he's hitting 291 with a 737 OPS. I mean, you could talk about as much as the stars are starting to hit in July on. I mean, Jake Cronenworth is part of that in the 30 games. I mean, that's a 30-game sample size, 291 average, 737 OPS. You can live with that for the money that he's getting paid. That's a huge asset for this team.
Higher batting average than Manny right now.
Over the course of total on the year?
Yes, on the year. Mm-hmm. Manny's hitting 210. Jake is now hitting 218.
he's gotten his average up. I mean, he's done fairly well over the course of that stretch. So we have updates for you on the injury report. Obviously, more focused in on Joe Musgrove and Nick Pivetta. When we come back, we'll hear from Craig Stammen on those injuries and the rehab assignments for both of them as we continue on the Braden Surprenant Show. Standing Over Sports Station 97 through the Fan. All of our guests join us on the SDCCU Fan Hotline. It's not Big Bang Banking, it's better. Recapping last night's game here on the Braden Surprenant Show. We'll get an update for you on the latest on the injury report as well. But I do want to mention just some notes from Kevin Acey's daily newsletter that talks about how good this offense has been and how some of these players have been. Offense trending in the right direction. 7 games now with 12-plus hits in the last 18 games. So 7 out of the last 18 games, they've had at least 12 hits or more. Had only 7 such games during the first 98 contests of the season. I mean, the offense is really heating up. And I have to say, for everybody that wanted Steven Souza Jr. fired at the beginning of the year, thinking that was going to do something, where are all the apologies? Right, Frank? I mean, I think it's only fair if you're going to blame him for the offense when they don't do well. Shouldn't you give him some credit when things all turn around?
Yep.
I feel like you would have to do that. I mean, we said at the beginning of the year, what is that going to do? Even if it hit, I mean, what is firing a hitting coach going to do? Seriously. Well, the offense has been really good. And considering some of the stories that have come out and what the Padres had inherited with Steven Souza Jr. inherited with who knows how many guys were working with other batting coaches over the offseason, he's really turned it around. Done a great job turning things around offensively. Jackson Merrill hitting .386 with a 1091 OPS over his last 18 games, among MLB leaders during that stretch. Xander Bogaerts hitting .277 over his last 15 games. On base percentage nearing .400 during that stretch. Fernando dominating first innings recently. 4 first-inning doubles over the last 9 games. And Mason Miller, from a pitching standpoint, ERA plus of 5.53. Are you kidding me? That is one of the greatest relief seasons statistically in modern baseball. Think about that. 5.53 ERA plus. That means he is, 453% better than an average player, right? Than an average pitcher with the ERA plus. I mean, come on. That's obscene. I think who would you consider the best closer of all time? Mariano Rivera?
Yeah, I would.
I mean, that's even coming from a Mets fan over there. We look at Mariano Rivera and what he did year to year. Hall of Fame pitcher, right? He had a career ERA plus of 2.05, which is all-time career record for anybody. 205 ERA plus. The highest ERA plus season that he had was in 2008 when he was 38 years old. He had a 3.16 ERA plus. Mason Miller has a 5.53 ERA plus. 5.53. I mean, you could say what you want about how much better he is than an average pitcher. 550. He's 237% better than Mariano Rivera was in 2008, which was his best year he's ever had. Think about that for a second.
He's going to be on Gwynn and Chris later today.
And he is going to be on Gwynn and Chris later on today. Do you think he'll talk about that? Probably not. Very humble guy. 5.53 ERA plus. Are you freaking kidding me? Crazy. Anyway, those are some nuggets for you about last night's game as we kind of wrap things up. We do need an injury update. Obviously, Joe Musgrove seemed like he handled everything fine. Seemed like everything was good. He's expected to make a second rehab start on Sunday, which is good news. Nick Pivetta, we'll see what happens with him. Obviously, they kind of paused some things for a second, but here's what Craig Stammen had to say yesterday about Nick Pivetta and Joe Musgrove.
Any update on Nick and Joe? I mean, obviously the day after was the big day, but day after can also be telling also.
Yeah, both, status quo continued with their throwing programs today, and, the next steps will probably be a little bit different for Nick, but Joe's kind of on schedule to make his next rehab start. Possibly.
Different in what way? Like no bullpen?
We'll probably give him a couple extra days to, figure out what is going on, and if we need to pull him back a little bit, or if we can just keep going.
Just to be clear, has there been anything new evaluation-wise with Nick, or is it just because of what happened?
Yeah.
Hold off a little bit?
Yeah. I think anytime someone comes off the mound in the middle of an inning when they're rehabbing an elbow injury, we got to pause for just a little bit. It'd be, in my opinion, a little reckless to go, hey, throw your bullpen 2 days later, make your start, 4 days rest, you'll be fine. I think we're really taking really good care of him. We're being a little bit more diligent, this week, and then, maybe recovers well and it wasn't an issue.
It's going to be interesting to see what they do with Nick Pivetta here in the next couple of days. I'm glad that Joe Musgrove is continuing his progression. It seems like there might be a pause. There might not be with Nick Pivetta, just in case. I think they're trying to ease him back into it. But what was reported after that was, he could pitch Tuesday. Padres are proceeding cautiously after he previously left the rehab outing early. Organization does not want to rush him back from his elbow injury. And now it's Nick Pivetta versus the clock of contract stuff. How many days out are we now? What did you say? August? He's got to be on the August 22nd.
Days.
15 days out?
Yeah, it's not next Saturday. It's the one after.
He's got 15 days to try to get on the major league roster. I don't think he's going to be able to do it. Is he willing to do that to try to get to opt into a contract? It's going to be an interesting conversation. I don't necessarily does, but we're 15 days out, so it's going to be interesting to watch. But you're hoping that Nick Pivetta can come back and help you out this season. Hopefully that was just a little bit of a scare that doesn't amount to anything more than that. I did see, there was, if I'm not mistaken, I'd have to look if AJ Cassaville had it. I'm pretty sure I saw that Samad Taylor should be back relatively soon on the latest update that we got from him. Samad Taylor, it was, last updated August 6th, which is yesterday. He was injured on a swing during the July 7th game against Arizona. He has been rehabbing at the team's complex in Peoria. Took live swings on August 6th. Could begin a rehab stint in the coming days, according to MLB.com and AJ Cassaville. So that's good news, I think, for getting Samad Taylor back out there on the active roster. So he could be doing a rehab assignment very shortly. Because I saw somebody had an option on had a question about that in the YouTube chat. So overall, we'll see what happens with Nick Pivetta and Joe Musgrove. I think Joe Musgrove probably is more likely to come back than Nick Pivetta at this point. I don't think that's really going out on a limb, but you could use a guy like Joe Musgrove back in this rotation. I think it drastically changes things. And we'll see what Robbie Ray's got tonight. I'm excited to see him pitch. Hopefully it's not too much time off for him at this point. With the way that Casey Mize was, it wasn't that great. I know Robbie Ray might be due for a regression, so hopefully Robbie Ray continues where he picked up. He picks up where he left off, I should say, from his last start, which was here at Petco Park last Thursday, where he shoved against the Padres. They're going against a pretty tough Houston Astros team that has won, I think, 12 out of the last 15 games. So it's not going to be a joke. And you look at the standings. We've talked a lot about the National League. We don't talk a lot about the American League on this show because it doesn't really matter to us. But Houston right now is 2 games above 500 and leading the division after winning 7 of the last 10. The run differential is still negative 25. Because they're coming from the American League West. That hasn't been that great. But if you look at the American League West right now, they're currently got 2 playoff teams with Houston and Texas. And Texas is a game under 500. I'm thinking I'm gonna be wrong from earlier this year. I said earlier this year that there's no way that the last team in the American League wild card has a losing record. It's going to balance itself out. They're going to start, racking up some wins. It's just a small sample size at the beginning of the year. But we're 40-something games out from the end of the season. Couple of weeks away, 7 weeks out from the end of the season. And the final wild card team in the American League still has a losing record. That, honestly, Frank, that's amazing to me that is the case. It's amazing that there's the division leader 2 games above 500 in the American League West. It's even more amazing, though, that the number 2 team in that division is in a wild card spot, because usually when a division winner has a bad record Ain't nobody in that division's making the playoffs as a wild card in any sport. And right now, the American League West is going to have. Right now, they have 2 spots in the playoffs if the season ended today, and one of them's got a losing record. Everybody in the wild card race right now, that's on the outside looking in, has a losing record. I mean, this is why, like, I thought Seattle, looking at their record at 56-60, and it seemed like every single time I watched them on Quick Pitch, they were taking an L. They're a game and a half out of a wild card spot. Detroit, after trading Tarek Skubal, they're 1 game out of a wild card spot. Baltimore, after selling, a game out of the wild card. Cleveland's a half game out. Minnesota, half game out. And Cleveland just got swept by the Mets. The American League is hilarious, Frank. It's really baffling to see how bad the American League has been.
I mean, we see this with the NFL a lot. Like, there's a year every now and again where there's a team that's either at or below 500 that's going to make the postseason. So, I mean, it's not completely unheard of, but yeah, for how many games in a major league season there are, and you'd think the American League plays itself more than it plays the National League. It's really interesting to see how even the American League has been against each other, and how few teams have been able to get out ahead, unlike what we're seeing in the National League.
The Detroit Tigers are interesting to me because they traded away Skubal, which they didn't want to do, and we're going to get to this whole this entire breakdown of what happened with the Tarek Skubal deadline decision for the Tigers. But they're a game out of a wild card spot, and their run differential is plus 80. Did you know that?
No.
It's plus 80. So, like, you know how they do?
How are they scoring 80 more runs than their
They had a
opponents?
terrible May. But their run differential is plus 80. There are only 5 teams. Correction. Yeah, there are only 5 teams in the American League that have a positive run differential, and one of them is not even in a playoff spot. And they're 3 games under 500. It's the Detroit Tigers. They're plus 80
the American League West
on their run differential. So when they do like the expected win-loss, right, which is based on runs scored and runs allowed, the Detroit Tigers expected win-loss is 66-49. Which is on par with what the Yankees' expected win-loss should be with their run differential.
They're expected to be 10 games better than they are.
Yes. It's really remarkable.
Meanwhile, nobody in the AL West has a positive run differential. The Mariners, who are in third, have the best run differential at minus 14.
The Texas Rangers are in a playoff spot right now. They're under 500 by a game, and they have a minus 33 run differential.
And the Astros are leading the division at minus 25.
I mean, Texas thought about completely trading their entire team away at the deadline and then decided against it. And it's probably because they probably were sitting there going like, oh, maybe we should look at the standings. Oh, I guess we're right there. I mean, they got swept by the Astros right before the trade deadline to lose the lead in the American League West, yet they sit in a playoff spot. I kind of agree with Jake Waters in the YouTube chat that the Detroit Tigers are the 2023 Padres right now. Are they going to be upset if they make the playoffs and they don't have Tarek Skubal? Are they going to be upset about that? I mean, they obviously knew that could have been a possibility when they were at the trade deadline. I mean, I would almost like to see, aside from the fact that I don't want to see the Dodgers in the World Series, could you imagine the Tigers are in the World Series this year and they go against the Dodgers and Tarek Skubal just shoves it? And you're just like, oh, I guess we could have kept this guy playing for the future. What happened with that, by the way? A trade deadline. Why was he traded on a Saturday? Why didn't the Brewers acquire Tarek Skubal? We got some new information from Jeff Passan we're going to get to when we come back to start the 11 o'clock hour. Hour number 2 on a Friday. I'm telling you guys, this conference news, this like protect college sports bill that wants to go through. Like, I don't think they're going to get it done by the time they go to the recess for Congress. It might get pushed to September, but with the latest kind of reworking of this bill, there's a couple of things that affect San Diego State. or could potentially affect San Diego State. And one of them is about conference realignment. This bill wants to limit conferences to 19 schools. The Big Ten's got, at this point, 18 schools. They got one available spot. The SEC has 3 available spots. The ACC has 2 to 5 available spots. And the Big 12 has 3 available spots for this. The other thing that affects this on these opportunities to potentially go to a Power 4 conference is the caveat of if a school wants to go to a Power 4 conference, they would have to be an independent for 5 years before they become eligible to enter a Power 4 conference. So those teams that I mentioned are those conferences that I mentioned that have those available spots. There's, again, 3 to about 2 to 5 for the ACC. So we're going to say 8, 11, 12. There's 12 spots available to join a Power 4 conference. In order to not have to sit out 5 years and being independent for 5 years, they just are discussing, and it sounds like they're going to add this to the bill, that if you leave your conference within 180 days of the bill passing, or the bill being put into place, passing as law, you do not have to sit out the 5 years as an independent. They're working on this bill, obviously, very rigorously. They're trying to get it passed before Congress breaks for the month of August. They want to try to, get it done as quickly as possible, because once you get to September, everybody's worried about, their own hide with, midterms and everything like that. I won't bore you with the government stuff. That's just angers me. But this is an opportunity maybe for San Diego State to be saved. There's 12 spots left. Like, you need to have one of those 12 spots or you'll be left behind forever. We'll explain more about that later on in the noon hour. There was an interesting article in The Athletic that had a destination for San Diego State, and it wasn't like they were going through all the schools that could move. It was they were choosing the best schools for the 4 power conferences. San Diego State's name might have been called. We'll discuss that in the noon hour. Let's get to what happened at the trade deadline. He's Frank Marchese. I'm Braden Surprenant. This is the Braden Surprenant Show, San Diego's number sports station, 97.3 The Fan. And let's take a deeper dive into what happened with Tarik Skubal. I had my initial reaction, my initial thoughts. I have no idea why the Tigers wanted to trade him on Saturday when this came out. It didn't make any sense. Like, hey, let's just get this trade done now. Like, why wasn't there a bidding war? Why wasn't there, why didn't the Brewers go all in? Well, Jeff Passan had an interesting article today explaining the Tarik Skubal sweepstakes, what teams offered, what they refused to offer, and he took a deeper dive into what happened over the weekend, which actually impacts the Padres in some capacity, and we'll get to that in a second. But his article provides the behind-the-scenes look at the biggest move of the trade deadline, and that is the Dodgers acquiring reigning 2-time AL Cy Young Award winner Tarik Skubal from Detroit. And it's not just about one trade. It's about how modern baseball economics, prospect capital, and organizational philosophy continue to separate the Dodgers from the rest of the league. So if you want to check it out, it's free on ESPN.com. You can go read it in detail. There's a lot of great nuggets in there, but we're going to kind of, go through some of the main talking points. So what happened? Detroit surprised the market by calling finalists on Saturday of waiting until Monday's instead of waiting until Monday's deadline. So Saturday, they were thinking that we're going to have to trade Tarik Skubal, and we're going to have to do it as soon as possible because other teams are going to effectively pivot to George Kirby. Do we find that to be that truthful, Frank? Like, do we think teams we're going to pivot? Like, I believe that Detroit thought this. I think it's a miscalculation on Detroit's part, but they started calling finalists for Tarik Skubal on Saturday going, give us your best and final offer because we're going to pull the trigger on this thing. because they were fearing that George Kirby entering the market would reduce Skubal's value. Really? Who calculated that in Detroit? So rather than create a prolonged bidding war, Detroit wanted certainty before teams pivoted elsewhere. Notes that Jeff passed out his article. Teams hate waiting at the deadline. Front offices were afraid of leaving empty-handed, and Detroit used urgency as leverage. I mean, do we think, Frank, that Detroit actually maximized their return by rushing this process?
God, no.
No. I think they should have squeezed teams until Monday.
What?
They totally miscalculated how to handle this situation by thinking that George Kirby was going to be a guy that takes away from the value of Tarek Skubal. Are you guys good over there in Michigan? Do we understand, George Kirby didn't even get traded. He ended up not getting traded, but what a panic move by Detroit.
The only reason why you would trade for George Kirby instead of Tarek Skubal is because Kirby has a year of control, or at least I believe he does. I'm not 100% sure. I personally would rather Logan Gilbert if I had a starter to pick from Seattle. If Logan Gilbert was on the market, I would have taken him over Tarek Skubal. If I had that choice, if I'm Milwaukee and I'm saying I can really only trade for one of these guys, Tarek Skubal's asking price is really, really stupid high, but at least we can counter with Logan Gilbert, who's set to be a free agent this year, same as Tarek Skubal is. That would make me more worried. The only reason I would trade for Kirby is because I would want the extra year of control. That's it.
I don't understand their logic on this. Were they just going to stop like a pursuit? I mean, they panicked. They blinked first. That's what it was. They blinked first.
When everything was on their side, too.
Right.
They didn't need to ramp up the pressure. The clock was doing that for them.
I don't get it. But anyway, they panicked, and they said, give us your best offer. So they drew a hard line in the sand. We need your best offer. So called the Rays, they called the Yankees, they called the Brewers, of course, the Dodgers. Every contender wanted Skubal. Why wouldn't they? Almost nobody wanted to pay the full price, though. Now, this is where you get to the point of, this is why I said what we said before the deadline, that you were not going to get a top prospect for Mason Miller.
George Kirby's got 2 years of control left on him. He's not a free agent until 2029.
I'd still rather have Skubal than Kirby.
I'd rather have Logan Gilbert than Kirby. I know Gilbert's a free agent, but still, I'd rather have him over Kirby.
But this is, again, let's go back to this. So they called all these teams. They didn't want to give up their top prospects for Tarek Skubal. And this is why I said that you were never going to get a top prospect for Mason Miller or Adrian Morejon, because teams don't trade these players. They don't. They don't trade these players. The only one that does is A.J. Preller. And if A.J. Preller, I'm going to tell you right now, if the Padres were like 10 games above 500 at the trade deadline, guess who would have traded Salas for Tarek Skubal?
100%.
100%. The Padres would have been like all over it. They called the Rays. The Rays refused to include their top prospect, Theo Gillen. The Yankees would not trade George Lombard Jr. They refused to do it. For Tarek Skubal, we thought they were going to give up George Lombard Jr. for Mason Miller. They didn't want to give him up for Tarek Skubal. The Brewers, not only did they say Jesus Mate was unavailable, they also mentioned Cooper Pratt, Luis Lara, Logan Henderson. The Brewers were like, we don't want to trade up. We don't want to trade any of our top prospects. Even the Dodgers refused to trade their top prospect. They said, we're not giving up Josue de Paula. We're not doing it. Detroit quickly discovered that everybody wants the ace, but nobody wants to empty the farm. If the Tigers couldn't get a top prospect for Tarek Skubal, what makes you think, Frank, the Padres were going to get a top prospect for any of their bullpen arms?
They weren't.
They weren't going to get... No, absolutely not. That's what made those trades even more nonsensical, and people say you got to sell. The Brewers in particular, like, I think we're justified in saying the Brewers royally screwed up and also have absolute no gall, absolute no guts to actually make a big move to put themselves over the top. They won't do it. And this is the difference, okay? This is the difference between the Padres trying to make the one move to get them over the top by trading away C.J. Abrams and James Wood for Juan Soto, and a team like the Brewers that refused to do it. So the Brewers are solid, but you know what the Brewers haven't done? Haven't won a World Series. Why? Because they didn't take the risky move. The Padres knew those guys were going to be good. They knew C.J. Abrams was going to be good. They knew James Wood was going to be good. This isn't trading Fernando. This isn't trading James Shields for Fernando Tatis Jr. This is trading two of your top prospects for somebody that changes the odds at the World Series to give you a chance to win something you have never done before. That's what this is. You have to give up some of these players. The Brewers fail to do it because they don't have what it takes. And so, you know what? When the Padres did it and they got to the NLCS, you know what? I applaud them for trying to win. And you know what? Eventually it's going to hurt, right? But nobody complains about it when they don't make that move. But I think if you sit here right now and you look at what the Brewers could have done, I think it's a missed opportunity. I would rather give up these guys like a Jesus Mate, see him be very good for another team, on a team, by the way, that's not contending, like Washington, who is still yet to contend with C.J. Abrams or James Wood, and say, you know what, I went for it. I tried to make my team the best it possibly can be to win a World Series. I'd rather have that than the Brewers that have everything based on a model and they don't have the guts to actually make a move. I mean, it wasn't just Jesus Mate. They didn't want to give up any of their top prospects. It's like, why? You want to know why they can never get over the hump? It's for moves like this. They're just, and by the way, we talked about it with Kyle Glazier on Monday. They got some of these guys on long-term deals. They don't have positions for these players to play in. Some of these guys are actually have zero value for Milwaukee because they can't put them on the roster because they can't play them because they're already backlogged by the players in front of them. I don't know what the Brewers were thinking, but they say they have to do this in order to be competitive because they can't afford big payroll. So again, it goes back to the rules of baseball where teams like Milwaukee, who want to compete every single year, understand that they have to keep their elite farm system at all times. The biggest takeaway was the Dodgers, have everything that they possibly can to make these moves because they have an elite farm system. They have the elite scouting. They have elite player development. They have the financial flexibility. They have the willingness to overpay because they never get punished by it. Other teams simply can't compete on every one of those fronts simultaneously. I've been trying to explain that to people for the last decade. It's more than just what your overall payroll is. You have to compete with them and go toe-to-toe with their farm system. You have to go toe-to-toe with their scouting department. You have to go toe-to-toe with their player development. You have to go toe-to-toe with financial flexibility. You have to go toe-to-toe with willingness to overpay. As they do, teams can't afford to do every single one of those. All of that costs money. When you have a $700 million, or whatever their TV contract is, when it's way more than yours, they have the resources to do it. It's not like all these teams are just hoarding money and refusing to do anything. It's not. They have more money than everybody else to do these things. Other organizations cannot trade MLB-ready pitching. Other organizations cannot trade away top 100 prospects. Other organizations can't trade high-ceiling teenagers without emptying the organization and setting themselves back a couple of years. Why did Detroit prefer LA's package? Well, the Tigers weren't simply looking for their best prospect. They wanted starting pitching, outfield talent, organizational fit, MLB-ready help, long-term upside. Dodgers did it with River Ryan, Zahir Hope, and Brady Smith. Why did the Brewers not go all in? I mean, they debated internally. They asked the question, we have to go for it. But what if we lose anyway? That is a classic small market dilemma, small market problem that every small market team has to go for. Eventually, they lost Skubal, and they pivoted to Dustin May. You want to know why? Because they didn't want to go for it. Because they thought, what if we lose anyway? Talk about a non-risk taker. What's the phrase, Frank? Fortune favors the bold. The Brewers are not bold. They're worried about this stuff. But what if we lose anyway? That is the most loser-type question I've ever heard in my life. But what if we still lose? Eventually, you got to take a chance. That was the Brewers' best opportunity to take a chance. Now, the Dodgers, of course, are the biggest villain because they draft well, they scout internationally, they develop talent, they spend money, they trade aggressively, which, by the way, I don't think they're breaking any rules. These are all within the rules. But the frustration shouldn't be with the Dodgers. The frustration should be against baseball's economic system, which prevents teams like the Brewers from doing bold moves. That's what this is about. I mean, the Dodgers can afford to sign Kyle Tucker and have him suck because it doesn't hurt them. The Brewers can't. And neither can half the other teams in Major League Baseball. Yes, there are some problem organizations out there that refuse to pay and they have leftover money and they're not paying the high percentages that they should in terms of like their revenue on talent. But the biggest takeaway from this, of course, is the same thing that we've always said. The Dodgers are playing a different game than everybody else. And that's why fans are frustrated, and that's why fans want to see some regulation in Major League Baseball, so you don't have the Brewers thinking about how are we supposed to compete for the next couple of years. We can't go all in, yada, 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 yada. It's not the Dodgers' fault. It's the stupid system that they have for economics that nobody else in major sports has. At least in the United States. So, as much as we see this play out, and we saw what happened over the weekend, teams aren't willing to part ways with their top prospects. We have now seen that multiple times. The only one that really wants to do that is the Padres. They take the bold moves. And a lot of small market teams can't afford to be wrong. Where the Dodgers can make big moves, and they can be wrong because it doesn't hurt them. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Frank and I are going to give our biggest takeaways from this article from Jeff Passan when we return.
5,000.
Right, this is our live reaction to the MLB trade deadline. It's officially over as we record this on Monday, trade deadline day. It's 30 minutes after the deadline, and we know exactly what the Padres are getting now in the trade deadline. They have acquired Robbie Ray. They have acquired Casey Mize. They have acquired Gage Workman. Let's talk about Gage Workman first. At this point, he has only had a handful of at-bats in the major leagues. Okay, he has done most of his damage in AAA. I think he has a total of like 50-something at-bats in the big leagues. He does have 2 home runs in the bigs. That's this year. He's played on a handful of different teams, a couple of organizations. He is 26 years old, and he's a left-handed bat. So this is something I think is a cheaper buy that you might be able to get some value out of. Maybe in the long run, I think it's a nice little, risk, if you will. It's not probably the big bat you wanted, but you know what? I think at that point when they were negotiating for Casey Mize, they probably couldn't go get a Larnach or a Alec Burleson. I think the Padres did a pretty good job with the trade deadline. I don't like the fact that they gave up Cash Mayfield for a rental pitcher. But the way Casey Mize has been pitching this year, we talked a lot about Robbie Ray already. The Padres made their rotation 100 times better than it was in these moves. The biggest loss, I think, is the Cash Mayfield part of it. I mean, you've already traded Jackson Wolf twice. And here's my thing on Jackson Wolf. If Jackson Wolf was worth what if he was really good and the starting pitching is what it was, do you think he wouldn't have been up with the big league club already with being in El Paso for most of the time? So overall, I give it a solid B. I don't like the fact that you had to slightly overpay for Robbie Ray. I don't like the fact that you had to give up one of your top 3 prospects for Casey Mize. They're both rentals, but you accomplished what you wanted to accomplish, and that was solidifying the rotation and adding a left-handed bat.
I don't think necessarily you're giving up Cash Mayfield for Casey Mize. I think you're giving him up for Gage Workman, and I think Workman would still fit up here on this roster if you send Rodolfo Duran down. Instead of carrying 3 catchers, you can now have 2 catchers. You'll have 4 outfielders, gives another outfield option, and 2 guys in Workman and Jace Bowen, 2 outfielders that don't have a lot of major league experience that could work towards it. So I think if you look more towards Cash Mayfield for Gage Workman, I think that kind of makes a little bit more sense as far as time that those guys have. But yes, it's undeniable that with what this Padres starting rotation was going into today, based off of what it is now at 3:34 p.m. on Monday, August 3rd, it is so much better than what it was this morning.
They don't trade anything from their bullpen, which I thought was very interesting. Yeah. I thought for sure, they might have flipped in a Jeremiah Estrada for a Larnach, right? Or like move somebody in the bullpen to help your team. They don't do that. They trade away, a couple of prospects for, in arguably one of the worst farm systems in Major League Baseball, as picked out by, MLB Pipeline. And they're able to turn that without giving up Ethan Salas or Cruz Schoolcraft or Tucker Musgrove, and you're able to get 2 big arms for it. I think that's great. Now, the big conversation is, and we'll talk more about this on the talk show, you have to add Ray and Mize to this roster now. This like chaos pitching group at this point with Ray and Mize, you have to add, that's 2. Morgan and Adam are expected to be back sometime during August and early September. Musgrove and Pivetta are going on their rehab assignments starting Tuesday of this week, and who knows how that works out for the Padres. And Giolito is expected to return at some point this season. That is 7 pitchers that need to be added to this roster. Yeah, that's a lot that you're going to have to lop off. I mean, those are guys like interesting decisions about, has Kyle Hart pitched well enough to be on this team? I don't necessarily know he has done poor enough to not be on this team, but he's got options. JP Sears has options. But if you just take those 2 off, now you're thinking about Canning. Is he still on this team? Or Edman Marquez, is he still on this team? And if you cut those guys, all of our guests join us on the SDCCU fan hotline. It's not Big Bang Banking, it's better. We're going to get to our manager's report coming up in just a little bit. But we do want to get to our reaction to this article about what actually happened at the trade deadline involving Tarek Skubal. Frank, as we went through that on air in the last segment, I mean, my biggest takeaway here is a couple of things. One, there's not one team that's willing to part ways with their number 1 prospect except for A.J. Preller and the San Diego Padres. And number 2, I think the way that the system is set up for some of these organizations, they can't afford to be able to make bold moves because if they are wrong, it sets them back a lot. I think you look at teams like the Kansas City Royals, right? A small market team that was able to go to the World Series 2 years in a row. And what happened after that?
They still haven't recovered. It's been 11 years.
Perennial losers. Same thing with a lot of teams that you've seen that are in small markets that make a push, and all these experts and national media go like, look at these small teams. They've done such a great job, and like, look, we have parity. The Royals won a World Series, and it's like, okay, well, they had a top 10 payroll when they did that, and they haven't been able to recover, and they can't retain any of their players. I mean, I brought this up at the roundtable yesterday with the Padres. Any team can do this. Well, you know what? The Padres have tried. And guess what? So far, in the Padres' 5 or 6 years now of being a team that spends money for a small market team, we have seen the report that if Aaron Judge agreed to a deal with the Padres, MLB would have shut it down because of the money. We also have seen that the Padres cannot add every single year because of the fact that they're giving Xander Bogaerts and Manny Machado a ton of money. And when Xander Bogaerts doesn't play anywhere near the level that he did in Boston, guess who can't buy their way out of the problem? The Padres can't. They're adding on the margins right now at the trade deadline. Not really, but in terms of every single offseason, they have to go find the Lucas Giolito's, Griffin Cannings, and Walker Buehler's, Herman Marquez's of the world to fill out the rotation because they're out of money trying to do what national media says everybody can do. So are the Padres just like hoarding money over there? Are they just going like, you know what, we're not going to spend all this money on the team? No, that's not the case. They're spending like 65% of their revenue on this roster. They've had they've had calls on extra money in the past with their owners to try to pay more in salaries. And a team like the Padres, who have sold out every one of their games in this new ownership, and a team that has tried everything they possibly can to compete with LA, guess what they can't do? They can't keep up. So why do we think that the teams like Milwaukee and Pittsburgh and teams like Arizona that have 20,000 people at their games this week in a very important series against the Padres, why do we think they can all of a sudden just go toe-to-toe with LA and do? Everybody could do what these guys do. The system is set up for the middle class of Major League Baseball to be punished for trying to win.
Yeah, and for a team like the Kansas City Royals, let's just flip that to the NFL for a quick second. Kansas City, the Chiefs, they're in the same market as the Royals, are they not?
They are.
I believe they're in the same exact parking lot as the Kansas City Royals.
They're a small market franchise.
They've been able to compete every single year. One season of going for it did not cripple them for a decade like it has done for the Kansas City Royals. That is not parity. That is a team gambling, going all in. And lucky for them, it didn't hit in 2014. They were good enough to be able, they had enough people under control, under contract, that they were able to go for it again in 2015, and it hit. After that, they lost everyone and still have not been able to recover from that. That is not parity. That is not a good way to run a league. One team should not get punished for a decade or more for trying to win the league's biggest trophy.
I take it even further than that with the Kansas City Chiefs. You know what they also were able to do? Keep their own draft picks.
That too.
If Patrick Mahomes, if the NFL was like Major League Baseball in terms of their rules, Patrick Mahomes would have been good for the 5 years with Kansas City. And then when he became a free agent,
he'd have been a Patriot.
He would have been a Dallas Cowboy.
Or them.
He would have been a Dallas Cowboy or a San Francisco 49er or a New York Giant. That's where he would have been. Kansas City would have got outbid by the Dallas Cowboys. And Patrick Mahomes would be a Dallas Cowboy.
And Mike Moustakas was gone instantly.
Travis Kelce, drafted in 2013 by the Kansas City Chiefs, still on the Kansas City Chiefs.
Eric Hosmer left immediately.
Right. Like, if Travis Kelce, what is he? Like, you get like 4 years, 5 years, whatever it is. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, Travis Kelce would have been a free agent in 2017. You think the Kansas City Chiefs would be able to spend a ton of money on a guy like Travis Kelce just to be their tight end? Where at the time, by the time he was going to be a free agent, they hadn't even they just drafted Patrick Mahomes, which, by the way, everybody said on draft day was the dumbest pick in the world. They drafted him with the 10th pick overall in the first round of the draft in 2017. They wouldn't even have, they never would have won a Super Bowl in Major League. And if they had Major League Baseball's rules, they never would have won a Super Bowl. And now they have a dynasty, and it's Kansas City, which is not a massive market. I mean, go to Patrick Mahomes. Let's say he did the 5-year rookie deal, 17, 18, 19, 20, 20. He'd be a free agent in 2021. He would have been a free agent in 2021. And they probably wouldn't have brought him back. He'd be a Dallas Cowboy.
He's been in the league that long already?
Yeah, he got drafted in 2017. I mean, he was in college and I was in college.
Wow.
You call me old, man?
I'm older than you.
Exactly. I want you to remember that. But you start looking at the, I pulled up the Chiefs because they've had a great run, and they're a small market team. And you go through their draft picks, they're able to keep a lot of their draft picks.
And you look at it, the Packers. That's a small market team. They're in the same market as the Milwaukee Brewers. The Brewers just decided it was not worth going for it in that same market. The financial strife that would come afterwards would not be worth going for it. Meanwhile, the Green Bay Packers have been able to draft and hold on to two of the greatest quarterbacks to ever step on the field.
Pittsburgh Steelers have been pretty solid over the years, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, they've been pretty. I mean, the last couple of years, not as much, but like that's Pittsburgh. Now we're talking about the Pirates too, right? Like small market. I mean, think about the teams that have done the best in the NFL playoffs. I mean, you're getting teams that actually have a chance every single year because of the way the thing is structured. And the only thing that they have against this potential, CBA is like, oh, anybody could do this. If that's your only argument, come on. Give me a break. Oh, they can just spend more. Give me a break. That's my biggest takeaway from this. It just not only are the teams not have the gall to make it through, to go make that big splash.
And like David Vu just said in the chat, the NFL cap started in '94 because the Niners and Cowboys were doing what the Dodgers are doing.
Correct. They're like, this is ridiculous. I mean, if you look at teams that have won a Super Bowl and have been to a Super Bowl, like Tampa Bay has won multiple Super Bowls in football. That is a small market team in Major League Baseball.
Mm-hmm.
The Bucs were able to get a guy like Tom Brady in the process. Seattle, not necessarily a massive market, has been able to win Super Bowls. In fact, they won the last one. Right? It's not just San Francisco or New York or Dallas, right, that are bringing in all the championships. It's not Boston all the time, although the Patriots have done very well. But every time that people like to point out in the NFL that they've had dynasties, yeah, because they've done something right. And here's the thing. If they had a salary cap in Major League Baseball and the Dodgers were winning all the time, I wouldn't sit there and be like, man, I wish we had... It wouldn't be, I wish we had more money. It would be, we got to start figuring out how to do what they do. And it's actually obtainable instead of just trying to pull money out of thin air. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. When we come back, we'll get to our manager's reports brought to you by SDCCU. It's not Big Bank Banking, it's better. Eric Grupner was on with the morning show. Had a lot of things to say about the business side of the Padres. We'll get to that when we come back. Broadcasting live from the Bill House Studios, we know how. All of our guests join us on the SDCCU fan hotline. It's not Big Bang Banking, it's better. He's Frank Marchese. I'm Braden Surprenant. This is the Braden Surprenant Show. Static is over at Sports Station 97.3 The Fan. All right, so covered a lot of what the inner workings were of the Tarek Skubal sweepstakes. We spent most of this hour talking about that. We're going to go back into some Padres news as we will get to our manager's report, which is brought to you by SDCCU. It's not Big Bank Banking, it's better. As the Padres Chief Executive Officer, CEO Eric Grupner, was on with the morning show this morning, talking about a lot of different things. And the first thing asked of Eric Grupner, of course, with this week, season ticket prices, slight increase. They asked him about what the feedback has he gotten on season ticket price increases.
Largely positive feedback. There's voices always out there that are, not going to agree with the approach that we take on any given decision, whether that's a player transaction and a business decision. And overwhelmingly, the response has been positive from the fan base. And our goal is to continue to be the very best we can be for our fans, both with the team that we put on the field, the experience that we give night in and night out at Petco Park. And, we're incredibly grateful for our fans. We remain grateful for the support we get from our fans. And the reality is we're no different than any other business. We've got to make sure at the end of the day that, we can continue to do what we need to do, fielding a top 10 payroll, giving us the greatest opportunity to compete for a championship. And at the same time, no pricing stays flat in our economy. We're not immune to that. And we've, got to continue to, adjust our pricing as everything else around us is adjusting the costs of running the team. And, I feel like a 3% increase is, fairly moderate, given, the surrounding economy right now and what we need to do. And we have a lot of support from our fans, and we're incredibly grateful for that.
Padres CEO Eric Grupner was on with Ben and Woods earlier this morning, talking about the season ticket prices, obviously getting a slight raise for next year. But they asked this question on the roundtable, Ben Higgins did, about how do you determine if a season was a success or not. They asked Eric Grupner the same thing. Here's what he had to say.
Well, for some time now, the standard for us is winning a World Series championship, and that hasn't changed really for the last 6 years. We've been to the postseason 4 out of the last 6 years. I think your question's a good one. I do take issue a little bit with the concept that there's different goals in different areas of the organization. There's one goal, and when we talk about, even what we do in other areas of our business, if it's, our concert business and an events business that we spun out at the start of this year and continue to grow, all of that, everything we do is in service of trying to win a World Series championship and putting the most competitive team that we can on the field. And everybody is aligned in that goal. So that is the goal. And to win a championship, you first, at the risk of stating the obvious, need to have a winning team that qualifies for the postseason. And then from there, you have to be a team that is as complete and hopefully as healthy as possible, playing your best baseball going into the postseason. And, if you look back at those Giants teams that won 3 World Series championships every other year, they were wild card teams and they didn't qualify for the postseason the following year. And, there's a lot of stories of teams that start to play their best baseball the second half, the last couple months of the season, the last month of the season going into the postseason, and then they're hot and they run through the postseason and win a championship. And I don't see any reason why that can't be us this year. That's our goal. And, the moves we made at the deadline, I believe, are, testament to the fact that we are committed to winning a championship. We address the greatest need we had, unfortunately, due to some of the injuries we have, which is our starting rotation. And, we hope to at least get Joe Musgrove back in the rotation before the end of the month. And we ride. And, we've got a team that's getting hot offensively, an exciting team. and they're playing together as a team. And, we feel really good about it, but it's going to be a battle to the end to get into the postseason. And then from there, October is always special when you're playing, postseason baseball.
San Diego Padres CEO Eric Grupner on with the morning show earlier this morning as part of our manager's report that we do each and every week. Every other week, it's Craig Stammen, and every other week, it is somebody from the front office. Eric Grupner talking about ticket sales earlier, as well as what he considers a successful season. In terms of some of the business side of things, there's a couple of things, obviously, I think Padres fans are worried about. And one, of course, is, you never know what's going to happen with a new ownership change. And so they asked Eric Grupner about what to expect, what should fans expect with the new owners here in San Diego.
I think our fans are going to be really excited as they get to know Jose and Kwanzaa better. They are two of the most competitive, down-to-earth, intelligent people that I've met and spent time with, and they are going to be tremendous owners for this franchise going forward. What the Seidler family and Peter really in particular brought to this city and this team was something that we had never seen before. It was a commitment to winning, a commitment to putting a competitive team on the field year in and year out. That really was without precedent in the history of this franchise. And as we look forward to the vision that Jose and Kwanzaa have, which our fans are going to be able to hear directly from them in the not too distant future, as you alluded to, they're going to hear more of the same with a long-term commitment to stewardship of this franchise, connection with our fans and the community, and competing for championships. And that's what they're all about. And so I think the fans, I think you guys, the media, I think, our community, everybody is going to fall in love with Jose and Kwanzaa because they're going to get to know who they are. And they're really great people, very competitive, very smart, very hardworking, and they have a big, bold, long-term vision for this franchise.
San Diego Padres CEO Eric Grupner on with Ben and Woods earlier this morning. The last thing, of course, I think that's on the mind of a lot of Padres fans and baseball fans in general is how their front office is preparing potentially for a lockout, and what the Padres are doing in terms of this as well. If there is a lockout, how long it would be? Do they expect to have a full baseball season? Here's what Eric Grupner had to say.
Yeah, so we remain optimistic that the 27th season will be played as scheduled. But obviously, with the CBA coming up and negotiations underway, it's a fair question, and I know it's on a lot of people's minds. I do think that, it's important to point out that the commissioner and the players union will handle the negotiations for the new CBA. That's not something that, the Padres are involved in directly. However, MLB's goal is to reach a fair agreement with the players union that improves the game for fans and creates greater competitive balance, which you alluded to. And I do think we've reached a point of competitive crisis as an industry. And I do think the best version of Major League Baseball is one where, regardless of the market that a team plays in, their fan base has a realistic hope, maybe not every year, but certainly every few years, that they can have a team in that market that can compete for a championship. And I think you've seen that in the NBA, the NFL, where you've had dynasties in cities like Milwaukee and Kansas City and San Antonio. And I think we've reached a point as an industry where, unfortunately, a lot of the teams and their fan bases just don't feel like their team can be competitive and doesn't have a realistic hope of competing for a championship. And that's not a healthy industry. That's not a healthy league. And I think we remain hopeful that the Players Union and Major League Baseball can work together to find a new CBA that is fair to the players, grows the popularity of our game, and creates greater competitive balance.
And I think those are all fair things to say right there for the, in terms of like what they're looking for in baseball. And I agree with that. I think that's what they need. And we talked about it in the last segment, Frank, about, it doesn't eliminate dynasties, but what it does is it allows certain cities that might not have the most money to be very good. and be able to have dynasties in Kansas City and Milwaukee, to name some, in the NFL and in the NBA, which currently you can't have. And that would be them doing things the right way, or they're doing things creatively. Everybody's playing by the same rules. They might just be doing it better than everybody else. You get rewarded for doing things intelligently and not necessarily because you have the most money.
And that's exactly what we put down on that little running scroll down there, is that we know that with a salary cap, we fully understand that there will be dynasties still. There will be teams that are consistently winning. There will be teams that are consistently losing, but it will be because they manage what they have available to them smart, and not because they have more than everyone else, period.
Yeah, and that's what you're kind of looking for in this. And I think that's fair for a league. And then, but there's a big reason why every league has this, in the United States. So I'm not overly surprised at that answer. I think that's, exactly what Major League Baseball is going for. And again, all of these labor negotiations and all of these, whether it be the, what's it called? The Protect College Sports Act as well. Like when we start talking about anything that involves labor negotiations and like what's best for the players or what's best for the owners and who makes more money, I have the same sentiment every single time. I don't care how much money organizations make. I don't care how much money players make. They can make as much as they possibly want. All I care about is what is best for the sports league that I watch, to keep it as competitive, because to me, I think the most competitive leagues are the most entertaining leagues. And in order to do that, they have to make rules where you can't just buy championships. And I think you're seeing that right now with college sports. It's gotten out of hand where they have to do this. And I think you're starting to see this now in, obviously, baseball, where I think a lot of fans have had enough. And the bottom line is, for all of these players and these owners, for that matter, the reason why they have gotten to this position with money is because their sport has been entertaining. And if it's entertaining, people watch. And if people watch, they spend money. And when they spend money, you make money. And if people stop watching your game, they're going to stop spending money on it. And if you're not getting fans to spend money on your sport, you're not making money, and then nobody wins. So a lot of the finances of Major League Baseball, whether it be player side or ownership side, has gotten way out of control, and they have to put in rules to establish this. You could make everybody's salary cap $1 billion. I don't care. But you should have everybody playing by the same rules. And I think the luxury tax, I understand that was somewhat of a good idea at the time. I think the luxury tax cannot be employed in Major League Baseball anymore, because I think the luxury tax only hurts the middle class teams that want to be competitive but don't have the money, like the Dodgers, Yankees, Mets, and Red Sox, right? Like the luxury tax is preventing the middle class from spending money, because the upper class of Major League Baseball can pay the fees. Where like the middle class of Major League Baseball, where you got the Padres are at, they can't really do that. So I think they tried with the luxury tax. It doesn't prevent the top of the market from spending. All it does is stop the middle, 20 teams from trying to be extremely competitive. And so there obviously needs to be a change. Well, I'm sure we'll talk more about the CBA as we get closer to it during the offseason. But we want to talk a little bit more about actual baseball right now at this point in time, especially with the Padres season heating up here with 46 games left. They got a big series against Houston. We're going to talk more Padres baseball in the 1 o'clock hour. We got some San Diego FC news we got to get to in the 1 o'clock hour. But we got some training camp information and something that's going on in Congress that could affect San Diego State athletics. We'll get to that in the next hour as well. Braden Surprenant Show, San Diego Summer Sports Station 97.3 The Fan. New Set Hour on the Fan. He's Frank Marchese. I'm Braden Surprenant. This is the Braden Surprenant Show. Setting us over on Sports Station 97.3 The Fan. Going to be with all of you today. A couple hours left of the Braden Surprenant Show this week. Gwen and Chris will join the airwaves next. They'll be on after us, and they will have Mason Miller on today. So that's going to be fun. Be sure to tune into that. Did they say what time? We don't know what time.
No, I do not know what time.
Probably early. I would be my guess, but yes, Mason Miller will be on with Gwen and Chris today, so that's fun. We're excited to hear that interview. We got to talk to Mason Miller earlier this year at FanFest. Man, that seemed like such a long time ago. Did it not? It just seems like so long ago. FanFest at Petco Park early in the season. We're going to get to our NFL training camp update in just a little bit. We got some other information to pass along to you involving college football that affects San Diego State. But without further ado, it's time to get to today's sports thread.
You know that group chat? The one that's always blowing up with the biggest sports takes, debates, and breaking news?
You got barbecue back there, and you didn't invite me?
Yeah, we've got that too. Welcome to the Sports Thread, where we break down the top 5 stories in sports, just like you would with your crew.
Oh, no! Disaster! What a bad idea!
No filters, no silence, just real talk.
All right, Frank, what we got going on in the sports world today?
We got some fun. You know, we've been talking about salary caps a lot here recently.
We just love talking about salary caps.
Yeah, let's talk about circumventing them, shall we? Love that. Love getting around the salary cap.
Number 1.
The NBA's investigation into the Clippers and Kawhi Leonard has taken another twist, with new reports alleging Leonard also had an undisclosed sponsorship deal with Daktronics, the company behind the Intuit Dome's massive Halo board. The allegations suggest the deal may have been another attempt to funnel money to Leonard outside of his player contract, though the Clippers have denied any wrongdoing, and Daktronics says Leonard no longer has an active agreement with the company. As the league's investigation continues, the case could have significant implications on how teams structure sponsorship involving star players. If these allegations prove true, should the NBA hand down severe penalties to deter teams from attempting to circumvent the salary cap, or is this simply another example of organizations pushing the limits of the rule book?
I think this is a foul. I can't believe that we're in this position. I mean, come on, guys. Like, let's not. I mean, if this might be just the tip of the iceberg, though, too.
Yeah,
there could be a lot more.
And again,
of this
Pablo
as well.
Torre on this again.
This is gross. Follow the rules, okay? Let's just follow the rules. I mean, this is why you have rules. It's for like stupid stuff like this. So hopefully the Clippers get punished for this. If this is something that has become, if the NBA finds this to actually have happened, but it's just who knows what other leagues are doing right now with the salary cap. As we talk about how great a salary cap is, you know what? For all the players that think they're not going to get paid, just look at Kawhi Leonard. He's still getting paid. It's just different. Come on.
If I'm the Toronto Raptors here, I'm starting to consider life without Kawhi Leonard as being part of it, because it looks like this trade is going to get stopped dead in its tracks.
Number 2.
Could one of the greatest defensive players in NFL history be making a comeback? Rams head coach Sean McVay says there's still no timeline on whether Aaron Donald could come out of retirement, but he did reveal the future Hall of Famer looked outstanding during a recent workout with the team. Donald, who retired after the 2023 season following a decade of dominance in Los Angeles, is continuing to train and evaluate his options. McVay emphasizes there is no pressure either way, saying that Donald has earned the right to make the decision on his own timeline after giving everything to the Rams organization. If Aaron Donald decides he's ready to return, would you bring him back immediately, or is it too risky to count on a 35-year-old who's been out of football for more than 2 years?
Define bring him back immediately.
I would say start game 1 of the season.
I feel like you can bring him back on the roster, but he's got to get into football shape. And I think he has to play a preseason game just to see if he can, just to get back into football shape, as I mentioned before. He's probably talented enough to start game one, but I think you got to put him on a snap count for the first couple games of the season. The other thing too is you play so many games, their defensive line is so loaded that I feel like you should just be trying to get him up to speed for the second half of the season more than the beginning, because I know every game matters. I know any given Sunday. I know all that. You don't want to dig yourself in a huge hole, but I mean, if you are the Los Angeles Rams, I looked at Calci's they got it trading at 17% to win the Super Bowl this year. It's way above everybody else because of the fact that their D-line's so impressive and they got these stars. They're well coached and they were close last year. I think it's preserving Aaron Donald throughout the entire year. At his point, we've seen guys do this where they miss all of training camp and then they come back for second half of the season. I think you're going to try to if you want to get Aaron Donald out there, you're going to have to ease him into the season. You don't need him for the first half of the year. Let him work out with the team, put him on the 53-man roster, and play him in a couple of games, but put him on a snap count. You got Myles Garrett. Shoot. They're going to be okay. Their defensive line is loaded.
Way to work the Calci thing in there, sponsor boy.
Number 3.
That's what it was on my last read that I had.
The injury setbacks continue for Red Sox first baseman Tristan Casas, who underwent arthroscopic surgery on his left wrist while still recovering from the ruptured patellar tendon that ended his 2025 season. The 26-year-old now has battled a torn rib cartilage, an abdominal strain, a major knee injury, and now a wrist issue, appearing in just 92 games since his breakout campaign in 2023. Once viewed a cornerstone of Boston's future, Casas now faces another lengthy road back with no timetable for his return. At what point do repeated injuries force a team to reconsider whether a talented young player can truly be part of its long-term core?
Eventually, again, I've said this multiple times, your ability is your availability, and if you're not available, you're not very good. So, I think you have to give them some patience, but eventually you're going to have to cut bait and just be like, you know what, we're moving on. I don't think they're at that point yet, but they might be coming to that point soon. And then if he works out with another team, good for him. But, you can only you got to do what's best with the organization. If you're the Boston Red Sox, he's just taking up a roster spot and taking up money that you could be using for other pieces, part of your organization. So eventually you're going to have to cut bait.
Yeah, and he's still 26, but those are a lot of big injuries that he has had.
Correct.
Number 4.
This one happened this morning as Tommy McClellan, the new athletic director at Purdue, was on with Pat McAfee this morning.
They brought him on after that whole deal.
And of course, yesterday's comments of him saying if you want to win championships came up. If you want to win championships, go to Indiana came up. McClellan owned the mistake, likening the comment to his golf game, saying, quote, every now and then you line it up on the first tee and you're really excited about that round, and I put it right into the water. Fortunately, though, I have 18 more holes to play. So a little bit of a fun deflection and having fun at poking at himself there for Tommy McClellan to get out of that comment that he made yesterday.
It's just different than what Indiana's new head coach, Curt Cignetti, when they first hired him, did at his, at the basketball game where they introduced him to everybody. He's like, Purdue sucks. This, he just starts listing off all the rivals and saying they suck. That's a little bit more fun. And, I think it's kind of like water off a duck's back for other teams, but the fact that you said, if you want to, win championships, you stay here, and if you don't, you go to Indiana. Him saying that after they win the national championship in football, something that I don't think anybody at Indiana thought they were ever going to accomplish, it's kind of bold to get things going. I get where the thought was, the execution was poor.
Much in the same way, Curt Cignetti, after his comment, look at me, look me up, I win. If Purdue somehow shocks the world and wins the college football national championship this year, that's not going to be that ridiculous of a statement anymore.
I know. We were doing the same thing with Cignetti. Bro, what? What do you mean, look me up, I win? Ohio State's going to eat you for lunch. Apparently not.
Brother won.
Number 5.
As Larry Fitzgerald prepares to enter the Pro Football Hall of Fame, one thing remains unchanged. He still refuses to officially retire.
The Cardinals legend, who hasn't played since 2020, says he doesn't believe in the idea of retirement, preferring to view life as a transition into a new phase rather than an ending. Fitzgerald also admitted he briefly considered leaving Arizona late in his career, but ultimately chose to remain with the only franchise he ever played for, saying winning elsewhere on a super team wouldn't have meant the same. What's more impressive in today's NFL, spending an entire Hall of Fame career with one franchise like Fitzgerald did, or chasing a championship with another team late in your career?
I think doing what Fitzgerald did.
Yes.
I mean, not only that, staying with the same team, but eventually those teams go like, you know what, man? I mean, we're not going to pay you to be here. It's just we're going a different direction. We want to cut bait and get young. So the fact that Arizona stuck with him the whole time, I think, is impressive. The fact that he stayed there forever is also impressive in this day and age of the NFL. And I mean, you got to applaud athletes like that. It's you can't really blame some of these athletes that get an opportunity to make money and go play on a really good team. That's what everybody wants to do. But I think you should give a little bit extra props to a guy like Larry Fitzgerald that didn't want to do that. And you know what? Maybe you do that for Mike Trout too in Major League Baseball. They're trying to win there, and it'd be more impressive and probably feel a lot better if you were able to accomplish that. I respect that. I really do.
And one of the more memorable Super Bowls as well recently was Pittsburgh versus Arizona. So he almost got there. He almost did. It wasn't like a Mike Trout situation where he was scuffling and fighting his entire career and never getting there. He came very, very, very close to reaching the mountaintop with Arizona.
Right.
And that's it.
That'll do it. When we come back, speaking of the NFL, we'll get our training camp update for you in the next segment. We also have some news that could affect San Diego State, a game of musical chairs that they don't want to lose. We'll talk about that at 12:35. Braden Surprenant Show, San Diego's number sports station, 97 to the Fan. For the first time, the SEC and Big Ten are officially supporting federal legislation that could completely change college sports. After a month of negotiations, both conferences have backed the Protect College Sports Act, a bill that would create national NIL rules, restore transfer regulations, and strengthen eligibility standards and give NCAA more authority to enforce those rules. The compromise also raises the revenue sharing cap to more than $40 million per school while trying to close NIL loopholes that schools have been using to spend even more on athletes. Now the bill needs 60 Senate votes before Congress leaves for recess. If it passes, this could become the biggest piece of college sports legislation since NIL was introduced in 2021. Will Congress finally deliver the stability college athletics has been searching for? Well, it's one of the biggest storylines in college athletics right now. And for the first time in months, there appears to be real momentum toward a federal solution that could bring stability to college sports.
Yeah, so after weeks of intense negotiations with lawmakers, the two most powerful conferences in college athletics, the Big Ten and the SEC, have officially endorsed the Protect College Sports Act. The conferences had previously withheld support over concerns of NIL restrictions, revenue sharing limits, conference governance, and future expansion. Following last-minute revisions to the bill, both conferences agreed that the changes addressed enough of their concerns to publicly support the legislation. That's significant because without the backing of the SEC and Big Ten, many lawmakers were hesitant to move forward with the bill. Now the legislation has its strongest momentum yet and heads now towards a Senate vote.
So the Protect College Sports Act would create the first comprehensive federal framework for modern college sports. Among its biggest provisions, gives the NCAA and conferences antitrust protections to enforce rules. It creates national standards for NIL compensation, restores limits on immediate transfers by allowing one unrestricted transfer, and reinforces standardized eligibility rules, which creates stronger oversight of athlete compensation. Perhaps most importantly, though, the bill attempts to bring consistency to a system that's largely been governed by lawsuits and differing state laws over the past 5 years. If passed, it would represent one of the biggest changes to college athletics since NIL was introduced in 2021. And I like this. I mean, I like a lot of the things that are in there. I mean, I get the only thing that's a little bit negative is they increased some of the revenue sharing, which I think a lot of the big schools benefit from at $40 million plus. They put in some caveats to it to make sure that they're investing in other sports besides football, which is not the end of the world. I mean, the SEC and the Big Ten were going to come out on top on this for sure, but it definitely has put in a lot more oversight to college athletics, which it is desperately needed.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially when you look at cases like what we talked about last week on the show with the kid from Tennessee. Like you complain and you see all these things about the NCAA losing all these cases that they should be winning as far as athlete eligibility. And then they go and do something like that where you sit a kid out for 2 weeks because of a $400 flight while he was debating whether or not to join the NFL. So this now gives these guys a format to follow, both the NCAA and the conferences, to where stuff like that doesn't happen anymore.
Will Congress get it across the finish line, though? That's the biggest challenge, because the Senate still needs to bring the bill to the floor before lawmakers leave for their August recess, and it requires 60 votes to pass. If successful, the bill would then move to the House before eventually reaching President Donald Trump's desk, where the administration has indicated support for federal college sports legislation. And while there's finally optimism after months of negotiations, there's still no guarantee the legislation reaches a vote before Congress leaves Washington, which leads us back to our old I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only the Schoolhouse Rock song, if you will. For anybody that hasn't seen that, maybe you got to go back and rewatch. There could be a lot of issues with the bill getting it through, but I'm just glad they have, this conferences collectively have agreed to this. Congress wants to get this thing done. So hopefully they're able to make this thing happen. I think it's good for college athletics. I think the money being a little bit high hurts some smaller schools. And the big schools were always going to get, some love here, but limiting transfers is huge. I think honoring contracts is huge. I think some antitrust law exemption is huge. These are all things that college football absolutely needed before they allowed NIL, and they finally got it.
Yeah, and looking at some of those things you had mentioned, the $40 million must be distributed differently. They'll get $22.5 million for athlete retention, so more than half of that is going to go to athlete retention, as well as $5 million dedicated to not only women's sports, but
broadcasting live for the Bill House Studios, we know how. He's Frank Marchese. I'm Braden Surprenant. This is the Braden Surprenant Show, San Diego's number one sports station, 97.3 The Fan. We got some news for you coming up in just a little bit about San Diego State football, potentially. We will also get to our 1 o'clock hour where we'll have Drake Hills on. We'll talk some more San Diego FC, some big news today. Chucky Lozano now officially part of the LA Galaxy on loan, so that frees up a designated player spot for San Diego FC, which is very important. And we also have tickets to give away still, right? Correct? Yeah, tickets to give away for Padres and Brewers for Monday's game, in which you can in which you can get a comic book shirt that they have, the giveaway on Monday. So we'll have those tickets give away in the 1 o'clock hour as well. We do got to keep you updated on what's going on in the NFL. We had our first game last night. It's actually pretty fun. So let's get to today's training camp report and talk a little bit about last night's game as well. Let's start with last night's game, Frank. That was kind of exciting, right? An exciting NFL Hall of Fame game. Usually the Hall of Fame games are boring, but these guys were slinging it all over the yard. A 33-30 victory for the Carolina Panthers in the preseason game. It is the Hall of Fame game. They won on the final play of the game. That was fun. I enjoyed having football back.
Yeah, that was an entertaining game. Haynes King, 2 touchdown passes for Carolina. Carson Beck went 15 for 19, 188 yards, 1 touchdown for Arizona. He looked good. I mean, solid game all the way around, especially for the opening game of the year. And I put it into ChatGPT yesterday. I think we asked this question either on air or off air yesterday. How many quarterbacks have played in the national championship game and then played in the very first NFL preseason game of the next year.
Do we trust ChatGPT on something like that?
The response was there's only two.
Carson Beck?
Well, no. Two others. Sorry, two others. Josh Heupel did it in 2001 for Oklahoma and the Dolphins, as well as Matt Mayock, I believe that is. Mauck. In 2004 for LSU and the Broncos.
So let's see. Josh Heupel for Oklahoma. Did you double check this? I kind of want to double check it.
That's fine.
All right. So Josh Heupel's last year of college was when?
It says 2001.
Okay, so he played in a national championship game against Florida State in 2001. So the 2002 Hall of Fame game, did they have one of those? I guess they did.
Or at least the very first preseason game.
That was the Hall of Fame game. Was the New York Giants beat the Houston Texans 34-17
so
in the 2002 NFL Pro Football Hall of Fame game,
that
which was played on August 5th, 2002.
That must have just been the Dolphins' first preseason game and not the...
Yeah. Unless, he got drafted by the Dolphins.
Yeah, that's what it says here. It says Oklahoma and the Dolphins.
So that's not right. And then what was the other guy's name?
Matt Mayock, Mauck.
Mattmauck. Matt Mock. Okay, so he played he played baseball too. That's cool.
2004 for LSU and then the Broncos.
All right, so he played for the... Well, let's see if he played in the... All right, so 2000 and... What year did you say? 2004? He played in the national championship game?
Yeah, for LSU.
LSU. Okay, so he played against Oklahoma in the Sugar Bowl. All right, and then... so that would be...
2005 Broncos.
2005...
Oh, no, actually, no.
No, he played in the 2003 national championship.
Okay, so then it would be the 2004
Hall of Fame game.
Yeah, because the national championship for that year would have been in 2004 because it would be in January, so later that year.
Pro Football Hall of Fame game was the Broncos on August 9th.
So we at least got half of it right.
Yeah, maybe. August 9th. So what year did you say? It was.
So it was the 01 Hall of Fame game.
It could have been. Yeah,
because the 2000 national championship game would have been in 2001, and then the 2001 the Hall of Fame game. So there you go.
Well, sometimes they flip it. Hang on. So we said 2004, Denver Broncos and the Washington Redskins were in the Hall of Fame game. It says click here for recap. I just pulled up this year's game. So maybe he did play in that one.
Wonderful.
I do want to check the Josh Heupel thing again. So he played in the 2000 BCS National Championship game was 2001. So it would be the 2001.
Yeah, it was the Rams. Game. It was the Rams beat the Dolphins 17-10 on August 6, 2001.
Oh, there you go. So they had two guys have done this before.
There you go.
Interesting.
Quarterbacks at least. Don't know about other players, but that's just quarterbacks.
Well, we assume the teams. So that we don't have a box score. It doesn't tell you exactly who was in those games. Let's see what it says. Future collegiate national champion. Oh, yeah, he did. He made his professional preseason debut for the Dolphins, throwing an incomplete pass in the final play of the game as the Rams sealed the victory.
Oops.
He had one snap in the game.
He was there.
He didn't start the game.
Start it, but he played. He participated.
So Carson Beck might be one of only one that started the game. All right, let's get to the updates on the training camp, starting with the AFC.
Funny, we're going to start with the Dolphins here, as a matter of fact.
Don't you have where's the Matt Scrapey Dolphin sounder?
What?
You ever heard that? Every time they talk about Chris Ellis Dolphins, they have the Dolphin sounder, where it's just a dolphin noise.
I don't.
We should steal that one for our repertoire because we want one for each team.
That's fine. I'll look for that. Has Miami's defense become the identity of its football team, or is the offense creating a false sense of optimism by turning the ball over so much? In Miami, Jeff Hafley's emphasis on takeaways is showing up every single day at training camp. 4 interceptions today, multiple turnovers almost every practice this summer,
and the defense looks like it's attacking everything. Is this defense becoming elite, or are we seeing an offense that just gives the ball away too easily?
I think we pumped the brakes on this a little bit. The most interceptions came against rookie development quarterbacks, Quinn Ewers and Mark Gronowski. Camp practices naturally favor defenses early. They're working on stuff offensively, and Miami still needs to prove that they can create turnovers against starting NFL quarterbacks. So I think this is more of the sense that they are, doing a lot better against a brand new offense and if they're capitalizing against like some of the scout team stuff, it's not a huge deal. This is why I like doing the training camp updates, because it's amazing what people write about, thinking like it's going to be massive for the season. Again, go to an NFL training camp practice, and you'll just be like, "Wow, everybody on this team is really good," and then that team wins like 3 games. You go, "What happened?" Everybody's elite out there. So anyway, I think it's not that big of a deal.
We'll move over next to the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow has spent much of his camp under center, something the Bengals rarely do. Offensive coordinator Dan Pitcher says they're simply adding more tools to the toolbox, but how much change is too much change? Should Cincinnati evolve its offense, or are they fixing something that wasn't broken?
I think especially in the NFL, you should always try to be adapting and adding more tools to your toolbox. I agree with what Dan Pitcher's doing. It can't hurt to have your quarterback take snaps under center, especially for, it's good to be under center. I think they should be under center all the time inside the 10-yard line and on both sides, to be honest with you. It drives me nuts when teams are in the shadow of their own end zone and their quarterback's in shotgun. I don't understand it. Same thing down by the goal line. I don't understand why you would be in shotgun a lot of times. I don't agree with that philosophy. I know a lot of offensive coaches out there still think you should always just stick with what you're good at, but I think your quarterback should be able to take snaps from under center. I don't mind the Bengals adding a different flair to their team. I think this is probably good.
I just thought of a better dolphin noise that we could use. Jacksonville.
You have multiple dolphin noises?
Yes, I do. Jacksonville has already extended tight end Brenton Strange, but wide receiver Parker Washington is still waiting. Washington says he's letting his agent handle the business while he focuses on Trevor Lawrence. With receiver contracts exploding around the league, should the Jags lock him up now or wait?
Wait. I'm not a big believer in spending a ton of money on receivers. He's a 6th-round pick with limited production. He had one breakout season, and that shouldn't guarantee huge money. I think that'd be a mistake for the Jags to spend a large capital on a receiver that was a 6th-round draft pick. They've already invested elsewhere, and again, the more that you invest in these receivers, you got to take out of other aspects of your game. I'd rather invest the money in the trenches or on defense than in receivers. Plenty of receivers have one good year, then regress. I don't think they should be worried about trying to extend or give Parker Washington a big deal. I think they'd be foolish if they did.
Fair enough.
They have other guys there, too, that they've invested money in. There's other camp notes there with the Jags, too. Travis Hunter, 103 total camp snaps, 64 on defense, 39 on offense. They're still using him primarily on defense, which I thought was the right move based on how I watched him play in college. So we'll see what the Jags decide to do with Travis Hunter. He missed some time with an injury last year. When I saw Travis Hunter's tape before the draft, he looked like an average receiver out there in college. He looked like an elite cornerback. He did things at corner that were at an elite level. I would imagine he might be used a little bit on offense, but I think he's going to be a defensive-heavy player.
Didn't he also come in packed with muscle? He looks noticeably bigger this year.
Well, he has to be if he wants to play
year.
both ways. Your body can't do that. It's a reason why guys don't do this. It is asking a lot from that guy's body to get through 17 games, getting a ton of snaps. It's just at a level like the NFL, it's hard to do. Yeah. And so he's obviously trying to put himself in some shape and to be able to take some hits on offense and be physical on defense.
Nobody is accusing John Harbaugh of taking it easy in New Jersey. More than 100 live reps in the heat, physical practices nearly every single day, and players admit the training camp has been dramatically tougher this year as compared to last year. Is this exactly what the Giants need, or is there a danger of peaking too early?
I think this is great. I really do. The Giants needed some toughness in them over the last couple of years. I mean, I think it builds the mental toughness. I think it builds the body toughness too. I mean, if you want to play at an elite level in the hot sun and be physical, you got to train your body to be like that. That's why, you get so many injuries throughout the years, throughout the seasons now, because of the fact that these guys are not doing what they used to do in training camp. Now, a lot of the training camp from back in the day was absurd amounts of running and hitting for no reason. I do think you need to limit some of it, but the best way that you can get into shape is by practicing. Like, you have to get into football shape. There's a difference between being in actual shape and being in football shape. Your body needs to be able to take hits and get back into, building up that stamina and building up that not only toughness, but that recovery time that your body has to go through an NFL season. This is the best way of doing it. Players are buying in. Championship teams practice hard. And the thing is Harbaugh's got a track record with the Ravens. And so I think this is great for the Giants. I really do.
Jack Campbell did not sugarcoat anything after red zone drills. He simply said the Lions' defense wasn't good enough. He blamed communication, technique, and even himself. Should Detroit fans appreciate that honesty or be concerned that the defense isn't where it needs to be?
I don't think it's anything to worry about. I mean, there's a lot of self-correcting. I mean, there's a lot of times where I leave practice and I go, we have a lot of work to do. I don't think admitting that is fair. They're taking accountability. It's like, we got to be better here. We got to be better there. That's what training camp's for. So, I don't think it's going to be a reason for concern that they're struggling. This is when you want to get all of this stuff out of the way. Right. I mean, you can fix communication issues. Camp is designed to expose weaknesses. It's built to figure out where your strengths are, where your weaknesses are at, and how you can improve to get better. It's better to do this now than to do it during the middle of the season when you're living and dying on it every single Sunday. So I think there's nothing to worry about with this.
Yeah, this last one here with the Rams is pretty much what we've gone over already. If Aaron Donald says he's ready, do you immediately bring him back, was the main point of this.
If you think he can play, he should be on the team. I mean, if you think he can still give you some production, I think he should be on the team. You don't want to see him go somewhere else. I think the fact that he's part of the organization already is great. That D-line is already loaded as it is, so it's not like he has to carry the defensive line. He's still one of the greatest defensive players ever. I think he retired a little bit early, and you see that a little bit more now. Like a guy like Luke Kuechly getting inducted in the Hall of Fame at age 35 is crazy. But he's going to have fresh legs after spending some time away. Pairing him with Myles Garrett is nasty. And you don't have to rebuild the entire defense around him. I mean, elite talent is elite talent. If you still think he's got it, which Sean McVay mentioned that he probably that he thinks he does, then yeah, I would just kind of ease him back into it. We've seen it with Marshawn Lynch, Phillip Rivers. They might have missed a step or two, but if you keep him fresh, I think you got a chance to have a pretty good season with Aaron Donald and D-line, on a D-line that's loaded. And I keep saying how loaded they are, but they're great. They're going to be good as they just wrap up camp at LMU. So we'll see if they decide to do it. I think they should. Musical chairs might be coming to college football. Will San Diego State have a seat at the table? We discuss next. All right, some interesting news today. He's Frank Marchese. I'm Braden Surprenant. It's the Braden Surprenant Show, setting his own sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Interesting news today in college athletics that has led to an even more interesting debate and could put San Diego State in a position to not get left behind, if you will. So, here's what we got today. They're trying to pass the the Protect College Sports Act, PCSA. They're trying to get this thing through Congress before that they, break for their little recess, which they have so many of these for no reason. But I digress. So with the Protect College Sports Act, there are some amendments that have been filed, and there's a lot going on, right, when it comes to how much money schools can pay in revenue sharing and how many schools can be in a conference and this and that. But 3 more amendments have been filed to the Protect College Sports Act from Senator Ashley Moody, or a representative from Florida. One creates an exception in the expansion provision to permit Power 4 schools to move conferences without the 5-year probationary period. 2 of Moody's schools, of course, are Miami and Florida State, who are in the ACC, who probably want to go somewhere else. Per the amendment obtained by Yahoo Sports and Ross Dellinger reporting on this, if a Power League school wants to move to another Power Conference, the school can avoid the 5-year probationary period if it withdraws from its league within 180 days of the bill's enactment. The expansion provision in the bill is one of the most hotly debated and divisive concepts. Multiple ACC schools are against the provision and have lobbied their lawmakers for changes to it, as Yahoo Sports puts this together. So, the cap on the amount of schools per conference is 19. If this bill goes through and you have 19 each conference could have 19 schools in it. And you're thinking about like the Power 4 schools that might be moving around, which would be a lot from the ACC because Florida State and Miami want to get out of there. So does Clemson. You got to start doing a math game here. So there's 1 spot available in the Big Ten because they have 18 schools in it. There's 3 spots available in the SEC because they have 16 schools. The ACC could have up to 2 to maybe 5 spots available if some of their schools leave because they currently have 17 schools in their conference. So minimum of 2 spots available, maximum of 5 if some schools part ways. And the Big 12's got 3 spots available. So what I found interesting in this, aside from the fact that once this bill goes through, you might have some massive conference realignment for college athletics. But Matt Baker in The Athletic put an article out simulating what he thinks could potentially happen with this bill going through. So the Protect College Sports Act could completely reshape this conference realignment. And the latest version of the proposed act would dramatically alter the future of the conference expansion. And rather than allowing unlimited growth by the major conferences, the bill would effectively cap the top 4 conferences at 19 members each. And it would also require any current Power 4 school leaving its conference to spend 5 years as an independent before joining, unless they can file this within 180 days of the bill going through. So if the Big Ten's got 1 spot available, he laid out some of the schools that might be interested in going to the Big Ten or one of the schools that might be able to fit. Academics obviously remain a major priority for the Big Ten. You have to be an AAU member to continue to matter, for them to continue to have you be a contender for this spot or a candidate, if you will. Geography doesn't matter at all. Football remains king for the Big Ten. Schools that might be considered: Notre Dame, North Carolina, Virginia, Georgia Tech, Florida State, Clemson, Miami. But he thinks Notre Dame would jump into the Big Ten. That would be ideal for the Big Ten. So they would have 19 spots. Takes away from an independent. The SEC has 3 available spots. Conference priorities, of course, are geography down there. They like the football culture, institutional fit. North Carolina, Florida State, Clemson, Miami, Virginia, and Texas Tech kind of all fit that mold. But he believes that North Carolina, Virginia, Miami could potentially be in the SEC. Not Florida State and Clemson, which is interesting. Football brands obviously remain elite. Both sued the ACC, already located inside SEC territory, but political resistance exists and doesn't expand television footprint. So as you can see how this goes out, there's a lot of moving parts. And with that, new chairs open up. So that puts like more seats available for the ACC, which could be UConn, Tulane, South Florida, Memphis, Army, Navy, Boise State, Colorado State are some of the names he put up. He thought Tulane, South Carolina, UConn, Army, and Navy in football only would fit the ACC. I think that'd be interesting to see Army and Navy in the ACC. I don't know why they would do that, but I guess it provides national brands, rivalry value, academic prestige, and stability. UConn obviously boosts their basketball in the ACC. But then it got to the Big 12. And the Big 12, they prioritize market size. They prioritize brand. They prioritize basketball. And they prioritize growth opportunities. Schools that could fit the Big 12. Florida State, Memphis, San Diego State, Boise State, UNLV, Washington State, Oregon State, Air Force. But Matt Baker thinks that Boise State, Memphis, and San Diego State fit the Big 12 the best. And the biggest thing about San Diego State is, and this is according to an article written today, they have enormous upside. Think about what the Big 12 is looking for. Top 30 television market. Okay, San Diego, right here. Snapdragon Stadium's brand new. They have had consistent football success over the last 15 years. They were a national basketball runner-up recently. Obviously, we all know that here. Big 12 doesn't have a California presence. San Diego State could fill that. And despite missing out during previous expansion cycles, Matt Baker believes the Big 12 would finally bring San Diego State aboard, which would be very interesting to say the least. So, I think with the new amendments to the Protect College Sports Act, it opens up the door for some movement in conference realignment. With TV contracts being up in 2030, it also brings up moves in conference realignment. And now with the new amendment to this rule about not having to be an independent for 5 years if you move within 180 days of the bill, and who knows if they're going to expand that to group of 4 schools, if you will, or group of 6, if you will, then this opens up the door for a lot of moving pieces. And I think this opens up the door for San Diego State to potentially finally get to a Power 4 conference, if they play their cards right. And if this opens the door, if you're San Diego State, you cannot just be like, we're cool with the Pac-12. You have to be thinking about the next move. And Frank, we talked about this before, but I think this is the silver lining. I think this is the golden parachute for San Diego State to be saved and be a Power 4 school for the first time ever. And they can't mess this up if the opportunity presents itself.
And I think this also puts San Diego State in a position to where if they don't take this golden parachute the way they didn't previously, this might be their last chance to ever get it. Because if this provision goes through where you either join a power conference or you have to wait 5 years as an independent to be able to join one, I don't see any team that is currently a power conference school or a team that is going to jump on this 180-day grace period. I don't see any of them leaving. Why would you run that risk of being an independent for 5 years, trying to think, okay, maybe you're going to be an SEC school now. And something happens in those 5 years, you're an independent, and that falls through. And now you have to go down to the group of 6. I don't see a school leaving once they're in with this provision in. So if San Diego State gets this golden parachute to join the Big 12 or join whoever, this is a must take, because there's a very, very high likelihood that you are never going to get this opportunity again.
I think so too. And here's the deal with this also. I think with that 180 days, I think that opens up the door. Obviously, where there's smoke, there's fire. The fact that one of the representatives from the state of Florida is throwing this into this amendment, as an amendment into this bill, with Florida State and Miami in their jurisdiction, this definitely tells you that Florida State and Miami are making phone calls going like, we need to get out of the ACC. You got to give us an opportunity to get out, which means they're going to move. And when they move, the ACC is going to try to backfill. And then you're going to see this like domino effect go through college athletics, and you can't be the one sitting there without a seat at the table. And so this opens up an opportunity, because as schools move, and with schools wanting to get to the max of 19 probably schools and to max out their conference, and you got a conference like the Big 12 that is focused on basketball and needs a top 30 market, San Diego State is a perfect fit. But if their leadership screws this up, that could severely ruin the athletic department for San Diego State for the future.
Yeah, it completely destroys it. I mean, as far as winning a national championship, especially in college football, it puts them behind the 8 ball. You know the ripple effect that this is going to have into basketball, where now there's 19 teams in each of the Power 4 conferences, which means they're going to be getting a lot of the national championship bids. So that puts even more emphasis and more pressure on winning your conference if you're not a Power 5 school, if you're a mid-major school in basketball. You have to put yourself, forget about the Pac-12. It's not what it used to be. If this carrot is dangled in front of you, jump at it. Put your hands, put your feet around it to make sure it does not go away, because if it does, you might never see it again.
Yeah, and unlike previous realignment discussions, Matt Baker in the Athletics says San Diego State, as he sees them as one of the final schools worthy of Power 4 expansion if the Big 12 gets another opportunity, and
especially for basketball.
And if you're looking, and if conferences are going to start looking at non-Power 4 schools to fill out their conference when things get moved around, San Diego State's going to be one of the first in line, but they can't be arrogant about this. They got to jump at the opportunity. And you start thinking about what this conference would look like with those 3 schools in particular, San Diego State, Boise State, and Memphis. I mean, think about the basketball. I mean, think about it from a basketball perspective, right? San Diego State basketball playing Houston in a conference game and then playing Arizona and Kansas. Are you kidding me? I mean, those are 3 schools that have been number 1 seeds in the NCAA tournament. You get to play Iowa State, you get to play Baylor, you get to play BYU. I mean, the worst end of the spectrum is playing like Utah. That's still a lot better than anything you're playing right now in the Pac-12.
And you mentioned they can't be greedy about this. There is nothing wrong with taking a low ball offer right now. There's nothing wrong with it, because deals can be renegotiated. Deals can be changed. You have to get in the door first and then prove why you belong there before you could start making demands of a power conference. Because let's be honest here, you haven't done much of anything recently. You've gotten some big wins. You've gotten to the national championship game in basketball. You've had some conference success before this most recent run. You're now starting to get back to it in football, but you're not in a position to demand. Just take whatever offer is given and renegotiate later after you prove that you're worthy of being in the conference.
Would you buy season tickets if your 5 home games were
I would be
in
a hell of a lot
football?
more likely to.
In football,
yes.
You play BYU, Colorado, Utah, Kansas State, TCU, and Arizona. Are you kidding me? You got a massive season ticket problem. That fixes a lot of it. We'll talk about that more a little bit when we get to the 1 o'clock hour. 1 o'clock on a Friday, final hour of the Braden Surprenant Show. San Diego's number one sports station, 97.3 The Fan. We got to give away some tickets for Padres and Brewers on Monday in this hour. We also will get to Drake Hills in this hour. We'll talk a little San Diego FC in this hour. And right now, we'll get you a preview of Padres and Astros as we have a big series here in town for the Padres here at Petco Park. Huge measuring stick series, I think, for both clubs. Houston is trying to fend off Texas in the AL West. The Padres are trying to climb into the National League's final wild card spot. Both teams come in playing quality baseball offensively, but each has some questions on the mound. Where they stand right now, Houston 59-57 on the year, first in the American League West. They lead Texas by 1.5 games, won 7 of their last 10, and just 29-28 on the road with a run differential of -25. They took 2 out of 3 from the Padres last season. Padres trying to overcome that and get them back this year as they come in 60-56, third in the National League West, 1 game behind Arizona for the final wild card, and 2 games ahead of Miami. Fangraphs playoff odds are now up to 36.3% for the Padres, which was all the way down to 7% like a couple of weeks ago, it seems like. They split 4 games in Arizona after an encouraging road trip. And you look at the standings right now, and you look at some of the games to watch for, not only with the Padres, but games that affect the Padres. You're in a good spot in terms of you can handle business against the Astros, which this is a lot better Astros team right now than it was at the beginning of the year, but it's not a better Astros team than what you've seen in the past. This is not the last couple of years Houston Astros teams. And they were even thinking about, there was reports that they might sell at the deadline a couple of weeks ago, but they got hot at the right time, kind of like the Padres did. So if the Padres could do damage against the Astros this weekend, they're going to move up in the standings either way because there's a big series in Arizona. The Dodgers are taking on the Diamondbacks for the next 3 days. That game will be at 6:40 tonight. It will be Sasaki against Merrill Kelly out in the desert. So Padres kind of need the Dodgers to win. They've already climbed a couple of spots with behind LA because of the fact that the Dodgers have lost 6 straight games now. They've lost. So if that continues, the Padres could get closer in the division, but you're really focused on the wild card right now. So you kind of need the Dodgers to snap their 6-game losing streak, Frank, and do some damage against Arizona this weekend, as you focus on the Houston Astros. But other games to pay attention to this weekend, the Cardinals are still relatively within striking distance. They got the Rockies this weekend. If you're trying to track down the Cubs, I think it's going to be difficult the way they've been playing. They got Kansas City on the road. Even though Kansas City's looked a lot better, I mean, they're not very good, so we'll see. Milwaukee is playing the Twins. That doesn't really impact the Padres per se. The Marlins are hosting the Angels, so a little bit of an easier stretch for Miami right now against the Angels for the next 3 days in Miami. That could have an impact on the standings a little bit, as the Padres obviously do not have too big of a lead over the Marlins. It's just a 2-game lead. Other games that are in effect that you might pay attention to, Reds and Nationals are kind of at a distance right now. Pirates and Mets, something to pay attention to. And the Blue Jays are taking on the Phillies. That game's going to start at 3:40 p.m. Pacific time. Blue Jays have been kind of hot. They're right there in the thick of things in the American League. You could use a Blue Jays win over the Phillies if you want to try to play yourself into the 5 seed in the standings. But at the same time, when you're chasing Philly in Arizona, you kind of need both of them to lose. So we'll see what the Phillies got against the Blue Jays. But things setting up well this weekend for the Padres. Just probably a little bit more of a difficult test compared to maybe some of their counterparts this weekend, Frank.
And again, it's the debut of Robbie Ray tonight. And then we know Michael King is going tomorrow. It's a late afternoon start again tomorrow. It's going to be a 4:15 start tomorrow. And then on Sunday night, the pitching matchup still has not been announced. So you got a good set of pitchers coming up here. You would have to assume Vasquez is going to be the one that's going on Sunday night. But yeah, this is a series against a first-place team. You're going to get a first-place team again in the middle of the week. We'll be out there on Wednesday at the Loft, or at least we're projected to be out there Wednesday. So this is a proper kind of measuring stick kind of series or homestand
against two division leaders coming in.
Let's talk about Robbie Ray. Everything starts Friday night, tonight, with Robbie Ray. Padres didn't acquire Robbie Ray to stabilize the rotation. I mean, he's supposed to pitch games like this. Pretty important game on a Friday night here at Petco Park. And it matters because it's the first time he's wearing a Padres uniform. He faces one of baseball's hottest offenses right now. And it gives the fans the first look at arguably the best trade pickup for the Padres this deadline. And there are some good signs. He's 10-6 with a 3.08 ERA. He's got a 1.09 ERA over his last 8 starts, which I think a lot of Padres fans saw just a week ago when he did it to the Padres and shoved against the Padres as he beat him at Petco Park in his final Giants start. But historically, Houston has done very well against Robbie Ray. Robbie Ray's got a 6.86 ERA and 9 career starts against Houston. He was hit hard in his last meetings back in 2022. The big difference, though, Frank, is this Astros team is not the 2022 Astros. This Astros team is not anything like the Astros teams that Robbie Ray has had to face in the past. So this is a good measuring stick, I think, for the Padres. I'm excited to see Robbie Ray pitch tonight at Petco Park because he goes out there and shoves. That would be great for the Padres. I still think you have to have a little bit of that rust factor built in, just like you had with Casey Mize. Hopefully he has a lot better of an outing than Casey Mize, but the Padres could really use him to set the tone for this weekend.
I would assume he's going to have a little bit less of the rust because he hasn't been on a layoff for as long as Casey Mize was. Mize was about a week and a half. You're looking about the same, maybe a little bit less for Robbie Ray, but he has also had more time to talk with Freddie Fermin and Luis Camposano than Casey Mize has. He's gotten a lot more. He's had a lot more time to be able to set up and get ready for his opponent than Casey Mize did. So I would be more comfortable with Robbie Ray pitching tonight than I was with Casey Mize pitching on Thursday. What was it? Wednesday night. But still, I trust Casey Mize in his next outing against Milwaukee.
Can the Padres offense stay hot this weekend? I mean, quietly, the Padres have become one of the baseball's best offenses since the All-Star break. Since the break, they're 4th in OPS with an 800 OPS. They're first in on-base percentage with a 358, and they're tied for first in batting average with a 284 team average. And they're consistently putting runners on base, but the problem is the power hasn't necessarily followed. They only have Jackson Merrill, Fernando, and Freddie Fermin that have homered in the month of August. Your hottest hitters right now, Xander Bogaerts and Jackson Merrill, which is funny because I saw everybody last night wanted Xander Bogaerts cut again, so that's funny. Bogaerts has a 1074 OPS so far in August. Jackson Merrill's got a 965 OPS. We're only in the 7th day of August, if you will, so obviously a small sample size, but they are the hottest hitters as of late. Cold hitters in terms of OPS, Manny has cooled back off. 422 OPS, Fernando 627. The offense is producing, but they still need their stars to carry them at this point. I think they could do that against the Astros pitching that's kind of been a circus for most of the year.
Yeah, and you're going to be facing Ronel Blanco and Peter Lambert here in this series. Ronel Blanco, I believe he's had injuries this season, hasn't pitched all that much.
Yeah, he is. He has only had 3 starts. He's only 3 starts removed from Tommy John.
Yeah, so
coming
he's
back from Tommy John.
So this is a guy you should be able to jump on, and a good matchup against Robbie Ray in his debut against the Padres this season. But Peter Lambert's not going to be that. 8-5 with a 3.08 ERA, and then you don't know what they're going to be throwing at you on Sunday night just yet. So this is you have a real good chance here to get out ahead of the curve here with the Houston Astros.
Well, Houston is kind of like the Padres right now. They've been on a little bit of a resurgence. Their stars are carrying the team. And the Astros took a lot more, they're a lot more dangerous than their overall record suggests. Their 3 hitters are absolutely locked in. Since August began, Yordan Alvarez, 421 average and 1192 OPS. Jose Altuve, 450, 1100 OPS. Cam Smith, 438, 971 OPS. Very scary trio for the Astros as of late. The one exception, though, is Isaac Paredes. Paredes has completely disappeared. He's got an 059 average this month. Again, small sample size for the month of August, but Alvarez, Altuve, and Smith are red hot, and Isaac Paredes is not. Maybe that will be the hot who's hot and who's not on the EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show with Sam Levitt. Sam, we did the job for you, so you're welcome.
There you go.
Pitching matchups tonight, as you mentioned, Robbie Ray and Ronel Blanco. What are you going to say?
I was going to say Christian Walker's also been hitting the ball pretty well. His last 7 games, he's hitting 300. Last 15, he's hitting 278. And they also have Dalton Varsho out there in the outfield now after acquiring him from Toronto at the deadline.
So you got Robbie Ray tonight. We talked about Ronel Blanco, and he's only made 3 starts since returning from Tommy John surgery. He has a 7.36 ERA, 5 home runs allowed, 8 walks in under 15 innings. Ray is obviously pitching a lot better than almost anyone in baseball entering the weekend. This is a matchup tonight that you absolutely have to win based on the pitching matchup. And hopefully the Padres do better against this pitching, because the Padres have struggled against bad pitching for the last 2 years.
Yes, they have. And this is a guy who, when he does have it, is not bad at all. He was struggling before he had the Tommy John surgery last year. 2014, he was 13-6 with a 2.80 ERA in 29 starts. So he is a solid top flight pitcher. Opponents were only hitting 190 against him in 2014. So before he had Tommy John surgery, he was a very, very high quality starting pitcher for the Houston Astros. He's now he's trying to work his way back to that. So he has the potential. Just because he had Tommy John surgery doesn't mean he's going to be a pushover, because it is in there for him.
Michael King, Peter Lambert on Saturday. We briefly talked about Peter Lambert. Frank mentioned it. I mean, Lambert's way better than Blanco is. I mean, he's got a 3.06 ERA since he left Colorado, 2.10 ERA over his last 6 starts. King has also been excellent this year. He's run into some issues. We saw that earlier this week, but, he's got a 3.18 ERA over his last 6 starts. The problem, though, is the Padres are 2-4 in those starts because they haven't scored enough for Michael King. Something to watch for on Saturday. That is a 4-10 start on Saturday. And then you get to Sunday, and we talked about it before, still to be determined in terms of who pitches. Randy Vasquez could get another turn after 6 shutout innings on Tuesday. Let's talk about the bullpen battle real quick. Late innings should be outstanding. Astros got Josh Hader, former Padres closer. Padres have Mason Miller, who will be on with Gwen and Chris at 2:20 today. See how I did that? That was nice. Yeah. Josh Hader is perfect, 15 for 15 in saves this year, 1.13 ERA. Mason Miller's 28 for 29. He's got a 0.74 ERA. If these games are close after 7 innings, expect some elite relief pitching by the Astros and by the Padres. Something to pay attention to. In terms of the injuries, Nick Pivetta's rehab has been paused after elbow tightness. We talked about that earlier in the show today. Obviously, it's a significant concern considering the Padres need every starter possible down the stretch. Good news is, though, Joe Musgrove continues progressing, and he's expected to make another rehab start on Sunday. That could make him available later this month, potentially, which would be great news for the Padres. What decides this series? I think Robbie Ray's debut decides this series. He can immediately become the stopper that San Diego acquired if he comes out there and shoves tonight. Padres stars, Kim Machado and Tatis, wake up after a slow start to August. Can Xander Bogaerts and Jackson Merrill continue to swing a hot bat? Can the catchers, Frank, continue the surge that they've been on offensively for the Padres? That's something to watch for. You got to be able to limit the big 3 for Houston in Alvarez, Altuve, and Cam Smith. And the Padres are getting on base, but we haven't seen them really cash in on either home runs or extra base hits with guys on base. We saw them strand a lot of runners this week in Arizona. They got to be able to get that big hit. And as Chris Ella mentioned, I mean, nobody has been worse than the Padres, it seems like, when you get runners on first and second and no outs and trying to drive in the runs.
For me, it's going to be who gets the starting pitching, because we know the Padre bullpen. I don't have to go through the names. But if you look at the Astros bullpen, Josh Hader, Brian Abreu, Brian King, Steven Okert, those are 4 very, very good. And in Brian Abreu's case, and Brian King's case for that matter, young pitchers out of the back end of that bullpen. You also have Tatsuya Imai, who was the big international pickup for the Houston Astros as a starting pitcher. He's been relegated to the bullpen this year. So it's been interesting to see how Imai's season has completely turned around from a decent start to now as a long reliever out of the bullpen for Houston. So if you can figure out a way to get to the starting pitchers to have to avoid the high leverage arms of the back end of both bullpens, whoever does that the best is going to come out on top of this series.
And then it goes into another big series against Milwaukee next week that we'll talk about probably on Monday, and hopefully the Padres can take 2 out of 3 here. The series against the American League teams are not as important, but it's still important in the sense that you can lose ground in the standings if you don't take this seriously. Not that they're not going to take it seriously. It just seems like the Padres have already gotten into playoff mode. And that's just kind of what it seems like, which is not a bad thing. I think that's good. But as long as they don't burn their pitching out, I think you're in a pretty good spot. But just looking at the upcoming schedule here for the Padres, they got Houston and Milwaukee at home. They go to Cleveland, which you would think would be tough, but I mean the Mets went into Cleveland and beat their ass for 3 straight days. And I know you watched Cleveland a little bit more this week than anybody else did because you watched the Mets. They just seem like they're hanging around because the American League sucks. Maybe that's my observation. Maybe it's too generic than that, but I don't find Cleveland being too much of a threat. Neither do I see Minnesota when you return.
Their starting pitching has been a little iffy. At least it was this weekend. Their bullpen got tagged late, especially in the game yesterday. The Mets won like 13-6 yesterday with a lot of those runs coming late in innings. They also gave up a lot of long balls, too, against the Mets over the course of the week. And then Minnesota, they're really the big fear I have of Minnesota is Joe Ryan. That's about it. And if the Padres do catch Joe Ryan, that might be a loss. But again, we talked about it yesterday, how they've been against good pitching. So maybe you want to catch Joe Ryan when you play Minnesota.
I mean, that's still 2 weeks away. It's August 21st. You got the Pirates. I mean, you could theoretically bury the Pirates too. You could put the final nail in their coffin, the week after that. So a lot of opportunities on the horizon for the San Diego Padres. When we come back, a new opportunity now for somebody at San Diego FC. Roster move today that became official that opens up a designated player spot. We'll talk about that when we come back. We're going to give you a reason why San Diego FC and their fans should actually feel good about the 1-1 draw with Minnesota. Yeah, they did fall behind early and just 3 minutes into the match. And yes, they struggled in the first half, but the championship caliber teams that we've seen in soccer find ways to earn points even when they're not playing at their best. That's exactly what San Diego FC did. Mikey Voris made 3 substitutions in the second half. Alex Mighton immediately won a penalty. Anders Dreyer buried it, and CJ Dos Santos came up with a huge saves to preserve the draw. This wasn't about flashy soccer. It was about resilience. Earlier this season, San Diego won by overwhelming teams offensively. Now they're proving they can grind out difficult road results. That's a huge sign of growth. If San Diego can start games with the same intensity they finished them, this team has every reason to believe it can make a serious playoff run. Is San Diego FC becoming one of the most complete teams in Major League Soccer? Well, we'll discuss that here in a second. But, Frank, this is a team that wasn't able to finish. Now they're not really able to start, but they finished really strong. At least they're in a position now where they get points in the standings instead of a late dramatic loss.
They nearly stole that game, too, as Marcus Ingvartsen hit 2 crossbars late in that game, including one with maybe a minute to go in stoppage time in the second half. So it's been an interesting change from San Diego FC. It's not quite the team that we saw before the World Cup break, and they're still not quite the team they were at last year or even at the beginning of this year, but they're starting to put pieces together. They put a lot of focus on the second half of matches. It bit them in the opening match coming out of the World Cup break, but these last 2 have been very, very positive signs for San Diego FC moving forward.
Yeah, just in terms of the details, I mean, Minnesota struck just 3 minutes into the game, and I got the notification on my phone. It was during the Padre game too, so I was like, oh, maybe the Padres did something but then I realized I was at the game, and so it couldn't possibly happen before. So I was a little upset at the fact that I looked down, because that's the deal when I'm watching the Apple Sports app is so fast that you get the buzz. You're like, what happened? And you're like, something amazing is about to happen. I'm sitting there going like, I get the buzz in my pocket. I'm like, something amazing. Wait a minute. I'm at the game.
I'm here.
It's not a prediction, right? So I looked and it was, oh, wow, Minnesota's already up 1-0 on San Diego FC. What the hell is going on? Anyway, but they adjusted. They made some changes. They had a good clean sheet in the second half. And, the player's spotlight has to be CJ Dos Santos. While Dreyer will receive plenty of attention for converting the penalty, Dos Santos quietly turned in one of his best performances of the season. First half saves prevented Minnesota from putting the game out of reach before San Diego can settle into the match. And then, second half, he really shined for San Diego FC. He's a big reason why this team won.
Yeah, it's so nice to have your starting goalkeeper back, which is something that this team has missed all year long leading up to the World Cup break. So to have CJ Dos Santos back and to have him have as big a performance as he had, also made a couple big saves late as well, that is a huge, huge point of emphasis for San Diego FC, because without, sure, again, you could have had the Dreyer penalty, but without CJ Dos Santos, you're in a position to where that Dreyer penalty may not have mattered.
So what's up ahead now for San Diego FC? Well, they shift its focus toward the opening phase of Leagues Cup, where every match becomes an opportunity to build momentum before returning to MLS play. The club has shown all season it can control possession and create scoring chances, but the next step is finishing those opportunities earlier in matches instead of relying on second-half rallies. And this is a team, by the way, that hasn't had too many second-half rallies. They've had more second-half failures than anything else. So they're still putting together a good 80 minutes, Frank. It's really the 10 minutes to make it 90 that it's been a little bit of a problem. So as they now transition into Leagues Cup, it's a good break in terms of take your eyes off the standings of the MLS. This is a kind of, I view as a good opportunity to get back on track in games that aren't going to affect how you are in the table for the MLS.
Yeah, you're not going to be playing another MLS match until you see LAFC on September 15th. However, there are 3 matches in between that. Coming up on Thursday, you're going to have Club America in the Leagues Cup. Then after that, it's Tijuana on Sunday, August 9th. And then it's Puebla on Wednesday, the 12th. So you're going to be seeing San Diego FC playing here. All of those games are going to be on Apple TV, except for the Puebla game. That will be on Apple TV, but it will also be on FS1. That'll be next Wednesday. So Club America this Thursday, and then Tijuana on Sunday for this week coming.
Baseball coverage on 97 through the Fan is presented by Xfinity. Score the most reliable Wi-Fi, one price, 5 years guaranteed. Xfinity, imagine that. He's Frank Marchese. I'm Braden Surprenant. It's the Braden Surprenant Show. San Diego Summer Sports Station 97.3 The Fan. Big game this weekend for the Padres against the Astros. When we go to break, we are giving away Padres tickets, Padres and Brewers, for Monday's game. As we go to break, be the 5th caller. You will win tickets to Padres and Brewers coming up on Monday. That Monday game. Celebrate Portuguese culture and purchase a theme game package, which includes a limited edition Padres theme hat. Tickets at padres.com/tickets. We will be doing that as we go to break. But right now, we do want to talk a little bit about San Diego FC. Estadio Azteca continues to be a house of horrors for these guys. They have started the Leagues Cup. They lost last night. They did get a goal, but what was the recap from last night, Frank, before we talk about the major roster change for San Diego FC?
It didn't look good. I mean, San Diego FC, they have looked very poor in their outings down in Mexico City. They've looked outplayed. They've looked outclassed, and this was, again, the case here. Brian Rodriguez scoring the 11th minute, then Eric Sanchez in the 33rd. Violante scoring just before the half, going in 2 minutes into added time, going into the half. Luca Bombino ended up getting one back in the 63rd, but this is a San Diego FC team that really does not like playing down in Mexico, playing at the Estadio Azteca. But good news for them, though. Their next two matches in the Leagues Cup this Saturday and this upcoming Wednesday will both be right down the street at Snapdragon Stadium.
The big news, though, of course, is the fact that San Diego FC has now potentially opened up a designated player position, which is good news for them because they have finally found a landing spot for Chucky Lozano, Frank.
Yes, we reported this yesterday that there were rumors going around that a deal was finalized between San Diego FC and the LA Galaxy on a loan deal for Chucky Lozano, and as of this morning, it was confirmed. So Chucky Lozano is now a member. He's still a San Diego FC player. He is just playing now for the LA Galaxy on a 6-month loan through the end of this season. So he will return to San Diego FC in January, I believe, when the winter transfer window opens. But Chucky Lozano will now be playing for the LA Galaxy, and as I mentioned yesterday, San Diego FC still has both of their games against the LA Galaxy left, with the most recent one being on the 29th, which is a Saturday, to close out the month. That will be here. And those two games got very chippy on the field and between the fan bases last year when the Galaxy came around.
I mean, the Galaxy are excited for this. Their fans might not be. But their general manager, Will Kuntz, said that Herving is a player whom we tried to acquire 3 years ago. So this feels like something of a full circle moment. Fierce competitor with excellent track record of performing on teams that have competed for titles in multiple leagues, including his debut season in the MLS. As we evaluate opportunities to strengthen our roster for the stretch run of the season, it becomes clear that Herving was the right player for the moment we are in as a club. We have a talented group, strong locker room, yada, 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 yada. I think this is a win for San Diego FC on multiple fronts.
Yeah, to get him back, to get him off of the roster. It's a designated player spot. The LA Galaxy also had another signing today. Trying to go back to, he's a former player for Barcelona that they had signed today. I can't find who it was. Juan, if you wouldn't mind in the chat, I believe you would know. Former Barcelona player coming over to the LA Galaxy as well. So that's I think that would probably be a bigger, more impactful signing for San Diego, for the LA Galaxy. But yes, very, very good either way for San Diego FC to get him off of the roster and open up that designated player spot.
I agree with one in the chat. I mean, why would the Galaxy waste a DP on him instead of trying to go get a better player? I find that interesting. But good news for San Diego FC. They can now put this in the rear view. We'll see. Is this a loan to buy potentially?
I haven't seen anything about that, but let's see here. No, it looks like just a straight loan for San Diego FC. It was Sergei Roberto was the other guy, former player for Barcelona and for Como in the Italian city. He is now also with the LA Galaxy as well.
We'll have more information on that when Drake Hills joins us next on the Braden Surprenant Show. Congratulations to the people that were paying attention to the last segment to help themselves win some tickets to the Padre game. Who was the winner?
Shane in San Diego specifically.
Shane in San Diego. Have a good time with the Padre game on Monday. He's Frank Marchese. I'm Braden Surprenant. It's the Braden Surprenant Show. Standing as number Sports Station 97.3 The Fan.
I saw. Go
what
ahead.
did you say? The loans.
Yeah, I was going to say I saw somebody in chat asking what loaning in soccer was all about, and apparently, as Juan said, Lozano does have a loan to buy option in that contract. But from Juan answered the question. But wouldn't it be nice, like you saw how good Jace Bowen was doing in AAA this year? Wouldn't it be nice to just like give him to the Colorado Rockies for 3 months? To be able to learn on the fly with Colorado, and then let them do all the development, and then bring him back here for a season for his contract. I mean that seems like it would work.
Yeah,
it'd be nice. It'd be fun.
That already exists. It's called the New York Yankees and the Los Angeles Dodgers. And then in college football, we like to call that Ohio State and Michigan and Georgia and everybody else that loads up. Indiana that loads up on transfers. It already happens. The difference is, though, they don't have to go out there and find these players, sign them, and then loan them. They'll just be like, they just wait. They don't have to go find them. They may make it easier.
Fair play.
They let the other teams find them for them. Well, that guy's pretty good. I'm going to take that guy. Yeah. There's not an official loan system. They just, I'll say this. Some teams, Frank, in professional sports in America do have the loan system. You just don't. It's just not officially called that.
Fair play. Fair enough.
All right. Let's get to some more pressing matters. Got to get out to the SDCCU fan hotline. It's not Big Bang Banking. It's better. Talking some soccer to finish up the week with our guy, Drake Hills. Drake joins us on the SDCCU fan hotline on a Friday. What's going on, Drake?
Hey, it's pretty hot out here, man, and a lot of news to talk about. We got to talk about some SDFC. Yeah, I want to see how your Horned Frogs are feeling going into fall camp, Braden. What's up? What's going on down there in the Big 12?
Well, you know what? They've already started their fall camp. A couple of they're in their second. This is completing their second week of fall camp. They got the week 0 game, Drake, in Ireland against Bill Belichick and the North Carolina Tar Heels that have put their defensive coordinator, his son, on leave. And then they have their issue with their general manager, I guess, if you want to call it over there, too. I mean, they got a lot. They're a circus. I hope the circus continues through Ireland. That's what I'm hoping for in that. But, I didn't really get to talk to you about, we don't really talk college football. It's mostly soccer. We got a lot of soccer to get to. But the new Save College Sports Act just put in a amendment that would allow schools to be able to go into a power conference. If they leave a power conference, go to a power conference if they leave within 180 days of the bill, which increases conference realignment. And every conference only have about 19 schools, perhaps. We discussed this earlier, but you know what? Big Ten's got an open spot. ACC might be having teams leave. I mean, what's conference realignment? What do you think conference realignment might be coming up here in college athletics?
So what you're telling me is that there's a transfer portal for collegiate institutions.
Yes.
That's what it sounds like to me, that there is no tradition, there is no sustainability over the course of a college football generation, whether you want to, now you don't really know what a generation even is, but I guess in the BCS era, you're thinking 2, 3, 4 years maximum, unless you're Saban at Alabama or Urban Meyer at Ohio State or even Florida before that. I just don't see the actual benefit long term, because what I see is an instability that will then in turn affect the university of itself, because people think that university athletic departments are just completely separate in terms of the actual economic impact that it has and the draw for students to even go to these schools. If you think that those two are not correlated whatsoever. I think you need to read a little bit more on the impact of particularly college football in today's day.
Yeah, there's a fun little, this guy created a website, Drake, and I saw on social media for like the furthest it's like college football travel, and it just documents like who's got the furthest travel, and it's like Cal and Stanford, and he basically threw Hawaii out because they always travel far, and Sacramento State, and he's like, Sacramento State is playing all their games in the Mid-Atlantic as part of the MAC, and Cal and Stanford are in the Atlantic Coast Conference. It's funny, these institutions that are supposed to be incredibly intelligent don't know how to teach geography, but that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about an on-field recap of last night for San Diego FC. Before we dive into that, Leagues Cup's going on for all of our newer soccer fans. What is the Leagues Cup, and what is San Diego FC competing in right now?
Yeah, so the Leagues Cup is in its second rendition, is all three domestic leagues, or I guess two domestic leagues across three nations, the U.S. and Canada, which comprise Major League Soccer, as well as Liga MX of Mexico. And the club teams, including San Diego FC, will play in this continental club tournament to essentially create another avenue to get to the CONCACAF Champions Cup, to then lay the claim that they are the best club team on the continent. And so it's previously they've done well with kind of a league stop where the Liga MX schedule, the MLS schedule halt for the Leagues Cup. And historically it's just been in the U.S., but as we will be talking about in the next couple of minutes, this is the first year that they're having it in both U.S., Canada, and Mexico. So what I personally think increases the level of competition and the investment that the Liga MX teams have in Liga MX. Because I remember, Braden, the last thing I'll say, first year that this came back into fruition, which is going into 2023 from 2022, Leagues Cup, I mean, you had some Liga MX teams. I remember Club America bringing out guys who were wearing number 163, 102, 99, 94. They treated it as almost like a mid-season, preseason camp. And so now you're having the investment of Liga MX teams in addition to the investment of MLS clubs. It's a beautiful sight, just not as beautiful of a spectacle that we saw at the Azteca last night.
Yeah, that wasn't very great for San Diego FC, and it hasn't been a great place for them to play. They've played there a handful of times now in their short existence, but what did you see out of San Diego FC last night on the pitch?
Well, yeah, the numbers were quite deceiving because if you take a look at them, they actually were able to play, quote-unquote, their version of soccer. They want high-pressure, possession-based soccer. That's how Mike Uvaris has installed this team since the end of 2024, going into their inaugural season in 2025. And so you win the possession battle. You had a lot of guys who were able to get on the ball, but Club America in their own stadium hits you on the counter, which is actually quite unique. And that's one of the biggest issues that San Diego has had in this particular season. We didn't see it as much as them getting beat on the counter, whether it's, obviously gone are the days of the partnership of Patty McNair with Chris McVeigh at the back, and you have Franco Negri on one side. So a couple of these guys have moved on, right? And so we're getting a younger, different set of defenders at the back, and I think that getting caught on the counter in a pretty rough 3-1 loss. I mean, I think that's evident of the style of soccer. I wouldn't necessarily go as far to say that America just has out and out much more quality, but I think it's just they tactically and surgically dispossessed San Diego FC for 90 minutes.
We're talking about Drake Hills on the SCCCU fan hotline. It's not Big Bang Banking, it's better. Obviously, the Leagues Cup is not at the forefront, I think, for a lot of teams. in the MLS. I mean, you're going to get a lot more teams being competitive in this, but for like San Diego FC, the Leagues Cup is kind of a bonus, but they got to get back on track in the MLS, and they have a little bit of a break now for the Leagues Cup. Do you think they took a step back last night? I mean, because the fact that they lost, I mean, they made some progress against Minnesota. You started to see them kind of get back into, kind of the style of play that we're used to them seeing them play. But the biggest problem for them all year was they've played a solid 80 minutes, and then 10 minutes have not been very great. This obviously last night didn't seem like they had too much of a shot. But how do you evaluate San Diego FC during these League Cup matches in terms of like getting ready for the second portion or the continuation portion of the MLS?
Yeah, I wouldn't go far at all in discussing San Diego FC in a regression at all. I think that let's just take a look at coming back from the World Cup. You go to Colorado, and just like you mentioned, Braden, you kind of have a typical 2026 result. You play a pretty stalemate-like game against Colorado, and they end up getting a goal in the last 10 minutes or so, and then you kind of have a pretty dominant return home back on the 25th of July against FC Dallas. They couldn't really do anything offensively. You talked about the Minnesota game. So you have like a brief return to MLS before the Leagues Cup began. And so I think with Xolos and Puebla coming to San Diego over the next week or so, I mean, I think that this is more so an opportunity to get guys back in form. But if just looking at the rest of August, I mean, you're to LAFC, at home to Portland, you've got Colorado coming, and then of course, as Frank mentioned before the break, you got LA Galaxy and Chucky Lozano in a non-San Diego FC jersey for the first time. So I think that's the true test. It's like, how is San Diego FC going to handle the rest of August?
Let's talk about the Chucky Lozano situation. So it sounds like it is basically official that he will now be a member of the LA Galaxy. He is put on loan, but it's loan to buy potentially for Chucky Lozano. This opens up a DP spot for San Diego FC, which I think is good news. The Galaxy themselves are excited to have Chucky Lozano, even though they're burning a DP spot for him. Fans of the Galaxy do not seem as pleased. How did you see this play out for San Diego FC? And it's got to be a great feeling knowing that this is behind San Diego FC at this point.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a psychological thing because, if we look at the fiscal financial side, these loan deals are never 50-50, not even close in terms of sharing the compensation. You guys talked about it a little bit earlier, but, Chucky Lozano is the fourth highest paid player in MLS if you consider guaranteed compensation. And it's in the uniqueness of MLS. You can go to MLSplayers.org and see what's the base salary and the guaranteed compensation of every player on an MLS roster. And so, apart from Lionel Messi, Heung-min Son, and Rodrigo De Paul at the two highest spending clubs in the league, in Inter Miami and LAFC, Chucky Lozano was fourth in terms of guaranteed compensation. So a little over $9 million in guaranteed compensation. That's still a lot for San Diego FC, even if it's 2/3 or 55%. So you get rid of the DP spot, but you're still spending a decent amount. But I will say psychologically, I think it's really good for the club, for the team, as well as Mikey Varas and the coaches to really focus in and not have that hovering over them. But I would say with LA Galaxy, I think they're getting someone who knows his back is against the wall. Like, Chucky knows that he has a lot to prove because the narrative, as well as, his form, he hasn't played since the midway of the playoffs last year. So I think with bringing in Elias, Tunisia didn't do well in the World Cup, but I think Elias was decent and has been a part of the national team and has been a part of the European outset at club level. So you're getting someone who is 4 years younger, will occupy that DP spot, who is very technical and I think matches what you would need in not only a goal scorer, but another creator to help out Anders Dreyer up front.
Where did San Diego FC go from here now in trying to fill that designated player spot?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see what Elias can do. 12 goals, 26 assists when he was in Denmark. Like I said, the team didn't do well at the World Cup, but I think he was helped Tunisia in any positive ways that they did have against some pretty strong teams. Sweden was no slouch, Japan, Netherlands. I would just wait to see, what Elias can do before we start talking about bringing someone else in from overseas. So I would like to see if he could add, maybe 5 to 7 goals over the next 2 months. I think that's a fair litmus test to see. Okay, trying to get him back into form after leaving the World Cup. Can Elias jump onto this train with Marcus Ingvartsen having a strong year? Obviously, Anders Dreyer being Anders Dreyer. Can you get 5 to 7 goals between now and mid-September from Elias Ashuri?
So after the loss last night, they're back in action. San Diego FC is on Sunday at home against the Cholos. What does Tijuana bring in terms of a challenge for San Diego FC?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's the diversity in like how they want to play. I think that Cholos, similar to maybe not as widely talented as a Toluca in the Champions Cup from earlier this year, or Club America from yesterday. I think there's still that danger of, hey, Cholos could kind of stick a foot in there and disrupt that possession-based game that San Diego FC wants to play. And so I think it's important that the San Diego FC team going back home, being out of the comfort confines of their home, can they play a more sturdy defensive sense of soccer? Not saying like they should park the bus, but I'm saying, can you be organized in defense and focus on not getting beat on the counterattack? If you do that, I think you can not only get that win against Cholos, but also even Puebla and move on to the knockout stages.
Drake, we appreciate the time as always. Look forward to talking to you next week. And do you have any plans to go see the new Northwestern football stadium this year?
Yeah, I want to go into that safe standing soccer-inspired student section. I know no one really thinks of the Northwestern Cats as a student section, fan frenzy. But, with this new stadium, you got the canopy open. Oh, man, I can't wait to get over there. My Ducks and my Cats are playing on Halloween this year, so we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see what costume Drake decides to dress up as, either the Duck from Oregon or maybe the Wildcat from Northwestern. We'll see how that goes. Always great talking with Drake Hills on the SDCCU fan hotline. It's not Big Bang Banking. It's better. He joins us each and every Friday to give us a soccer update, but he is a big college football fan as well as college basketball. Also, big Oregon Duck alumni. And you know what? I don't think Oregon plays Northwestern this year, but that's got to always tear him up a little bit.
Just wear the duck hat and then like a cat.
I think are they playing each other this year? I can't remember if they are, and he talked about that, or if they did that last year and he did the double jersey thing.
Oh, they are playing. They're playing each other on Halloween.
Oh, that's what. So they're playing each other on Halloween. Okay,
yes.
It's in Eugene. It would have been better if it was at Northwestern. Drake could have checked out the new stadium.
Could have done.
I do got my buddy who's a Penn State fan is going to Penn State at Northwestern. He knows Drake.
Did not go well for them last year, Northwestern.
No.
34-14.
Not great.
Not great, sir.
That'll do it for us this week. He's Frank Marchese. I'm Braden Surprenant. Thanks again for tuning in to the broadcast all week long. Gwen and Chris are coming up next. Mason Miller will be on with Gwen and Chris at 2:20. Stay tuned for that. We'll talk to you guys on Monday. Have a great weekend.